Hello everyone and welcome to my limited set review of the Magic the Gathering set Adventures in the Forgotten Realms. This time I'm going to just go quickly through the cards. I won't be discussing a lot of about them because otherwise this video will take like 2 to 3 hours. So I will try to give my quick first impression and then of course I will rate each card as well, but those ratings will absolutely change for many cards when I get to play the set and learn what is actually good and what is not. So these are my initial impressions. The rating scale is also shown in the description below, and you can check it from there. But I will explain it now too. And also I will check the dungeon cards first before I go to the card. So this video has those chapter selections, so you can just jump right to the section of what interests the most you. So you can choose that if you, for example, know already what the dungeons do, so you don't have to watch through that part of the video. Anyway, the rating scale is simply a 5-step scale. 5 out of 5 is first pickable bomb, basically a card that usually wins on its own, and unless it gets dealt with in some way. Just a very high efficiency card in terms of mana cost and abilities. 4 out of 5 is still a first pickable cards. You definitely want to have as many of those as possible. They are somehow either so cheap and efficient or just very strong effect, like very powerful removal spells will be 4 out of 5. And 3 out of 5 is the general playable you don't mind having in your deck, but you don't mind cutting those from your deck either. So you usually never cut a 4 out of 5 if that card is in your colors, of course, but you can cut 3 out of 5. And then there's a 2 out of 5, not a card you usually want to put in the deck, but if you must and if you need some, let's see, mana curve filling, you can use a 2 out of 5 for that and not feel too bad about it. 1 out of 5 is basically an unplayable card you shouldn't put into your deck. And okay, let's go to the next section here, which is the dungeon cards. If the resolution is too low, because these are quite low resolution on my screen, if you can't read them, I guess you can find these cards by googling up, and then if you don't already know what they do, so you can just follow with me by using that other source you found. So these are the 3 dungeon cards that are relevant for the venture into dungeon ability that many of the cards have in this set. And I think, well, the idea is that when you venture into a dungeon, if you don't know how it works, you pick one of these 3, and these are not cards you have to pick in a draft. These are always existing. These are like external game pieces that always exist. In a tabletop play, you of course want to own these to mark your progress in a dungeon, but you can also just print these. You can draw your own versions as long as the information is accurate, of course. But point is that you will always have access to these dungeons, and in draft because these won't be showing up in the card slots, you won't even be able to pick these. But that's that. So when you are instructed to venture into a dungeon, you will choose, assuming you haven't done that yet during that game, you will choose one of these dungeons and go to the first level of the dungeon, which is the uppermost room in the dungeon. And then when you have chosen one of these dungeons, and if you have another effect that says venture into dungeon, you have to continue in that same dungeon. And when you have finished it, so basically when you have got to the last room, then the dungeon is completed. And then if you still get some more venture effects, all the 3 dungeons will be available as well, and you can choose one of the other 2 ones that you that are remaining, or you can also go back to the same dungeon you just completed. There's no restrictions there of any kind. So the dungeon of the Mad Mage is a 7-level dungeon. You gain 1 life and you scribe 1 are the first 2 effects, so not super high impactful. Then the Goblin Bazaar and Twisted Caverns are already quite okay. Scry 2 is decent. Runestone Caverns, Murals, Graveyard are these are already strong effects worth getting. And then the Scry 3 is quite nice, and Mad Wizard's Lair is of course the grand prize here. Draw 3 cards and you can even cast one of them for free if you want to. So if you have a lot of venture, you might want to go to the Mad Mage dungeon. If you don't have a lot of venture, you might want to go to the Lost Mine of Phandelver, because the second venture already gives you something somewhat substantial, because getting a free token or a treasure token, a free 1/1 token or a treasure token is definitely something that is a nice side effect for any spell you play, or there could be also a venture ability that is an activated ability. But anyway, I'm assuming that the Lost Mine of Phandelver is the dungeon of choice for decks that are not really that heavy into the venturing, but have some amount of venture effects. And then you can get a +1/+1 counter, very minor life drain, and then some defensive ability in the Fungi Cavern. And then the grand prize is the draw 1 card, which is obviously nothing like the Mad Wizard's Lair, but note this is a level 5 compared to level 7 in here. And drawing a card is still a nice side effect for your venture ability. And then there is a Tome of Annihilation, which I assume is going to be chosen by aggressive decks, because you probably often want to go to the left-hand side, because these are symmetrical effects, and you don't, if you are an aggressive deck, you don't care about paying life or losing life. And then, of course, the grand prize here is a 4/4 creature with death touch. Definitely, I mean, if you get this as a side effect from a venture card, it is a very strong effect. And if you really want to do it in 3 steps, you can choose the oubliette route, but discard a card and sacrifice an artifact and a creature and a land is quite heavy cost. Of course, if you don't have a creature or an artifact, you don't have to sacrifice, but you have to discard a card and sacrifice a land. You most often are going to have a card in hand and a land on the battlefield, so it's a pretty hefty cost, but you have the option to go there. I would assume the Lost Mine of Phandelver is going to be the most common target for venturing, and Tomb of Annihilation with the left side for aggressive decks, and Dungeon of the Mad Mage for the dedicated venture decks. But this is still a nice amount of, you can select any of these always, so it's, in my opinion, the venture mechanic is very interesting and could be strong too. So that's it. So let's go now to the cards. I will rate each card very quickly, because I don't want this video to be 3 hours long, and I won't be going that much into detail here. I will first go through all the commons in color order, then through all the uncommons, and then the rares and mythics. I will go in the same batch. Alright, +2 Mace is the first card, which is a white card. 2 mana to play, 3 mana to equip. So you pay 5 mana to get +2/+2. This is going to go into aggressive decks. It's not great in the slower decks, because you don't have mana to move around. This 3 mana equip cost, I mean, is quite hefty. So you have to have most of your creatures quite cheap, so that you can play those creature spells and still move around the equipment when needed. So it is a 3 out of 5 in an aggressive deck, 2 out of 5 otherwise. Arbora Pegasus. This is also a card for aggressive decks, and I'm not even sure if it's that good. 4 mana 2/3 flyer isn't that great. The jump ability, it can deal some additional damage on the turn you cast this, but I suppose if the white decks which have the color white has an equipment theme, equipment theme. So if you can make this power larger than 2 reasonably often, I think it's an okay card. But I would say it's like a 2 out of 5, maybe in aggressive decks a 3 out of 5. Celestial Unicorn is the green-white archetype in this format is based on life gain. Well, of course, there are some other mechanics too, but green and white have ways to gain life. And this is, of course, a highly powerful payoff. So I think this is always going to be a 3. Well, it's not going to be a 3 out of 5 in decks that don't have any life gain, but I think it's easy enough to have white cards that gain you some life that this is most often going to be a 3 out of 5. But in a deck without life gain, it's a 2 out of 5. Dawnbringer Cleric, well, this is one way to gain life. It also is a 2 mana 1/3, and not all decks are interested in such defensive stats. But it has these first two abilities are quite okay. If you are interested in defensive creatures, you care about the life too, even if you can't synergize with it. But I think this is still a 2 out of 5. It's a good sideboard card in best of 3 because of the destroy target enchantment part though. So you should pick this in best of 3 drafts at least highly, well, a bit higher, not highly, but a bit higher because of the sideboard use here. I think it's a 2 out of 5 still. And Delver's Torch is it's same cost and equip as the +2 mace, but this gives only +1/+1, but has a very beneficial attack trigger to venture in the dungeon. So both of these equipment, this and the +2 mace, are of course going only to aggressive decks, and this will be slightly better in decks that have multiple venture effects, so that you don't have to just count on these to venture deeper into dungeon. So I think it's in an aggressive deck it can be a 3 out of 5, but that also requires some venture synergy from other cards. I mean, not synergy, but it needs other cards with venture. Otherwise, it's just a 2 out of 5. And in non-aggressive decks, it's most likely going to be a 2 out of 5 because the +1/+1 is so kind of unimpressive for the given the cost involved. Devoted Paladin, their ability is very good, of course, but it's a 5 mana 4/4, and this is the best in an aggressive deck. But aggressive decks don't want to necessarily play 5 mana creatures, especially if they don't have evasion. So I'm not sure what deck this fits into. So I'm willing to give this a rating of 2 out of 5. I don't think it's a high pick in any archetype until I have played the set and I know this fits into some specific archetype. So let's say 2 out of 5 for now. A Dwarf Hold Champion, white and red have equipment sub-theme in this set, and this as a 2 mana 3/1 is a completely acceptable 2-drop, but if your deck has no equipment, I don't think it's a good card in that case. It's a 2 out of 5 maybe. In that case, well, I guess it's a fine asset. If you need a 2-drop, you can play a 2 mana 3/1 for sure. But if your deck has equipment, like let's say maybe 3 pieces, which is probably the upper limit with what I'm willing to play equipment in a deck. But with 3 equipment, this is easily a 3 out of 5. And if you just need 2-drops, pick it and play it. Gloomstalker, this has the mechanic that you have completed a dungeon, and this is going to be a crazy good, well, not crazy good, but definitely an undercosted card. Whereas without completing a dungeon, it's an overcosted card. 3 mana 2/3, not a good card. So if you have a reasonably a good chance to complete a dungeon during a game, so which means a lot of venturing, this is a 3 out of 5, but in most cases it's a 2 out of 5. Half-Elf Monk, it's a tapper, but it is a 4 mana 1/4. I guess if you can equip this to make it like an actual significant attacker, because it has vigilance, so you can actually attack and use a tap ability. But 2 mana to tap is still fairly expensive. It's harder to play other effects of cards when you reserve 2 mana for tapping. So I'm not a big fan of this card, but it can be useful. For example, if you just don't mind having a 4 mana 1/4 in a defensive deck, then it's definitely okay. But the stats are really bad. So I think it's 2 out of 5 in most decks and 3 out of 5 in maybe some defensive decks or decks that have equipment that can make this a formidable attacker. Minimus Containment. Yeah, this is one of the enchantment-based removal cards in the set, and sadly, well, I don't know if it's sad, but unfortunately for these enchantment-based removal spells, the set has a number of cards that get rid of enchantments, kind of like a side effect, which makes me a bit scared to pick this at least highly. I guess I would always play one of these cards in a deck, but I also don't want to give a treasure to opponent, so I don't think this is a very good pacifism variant. It does work on a non-land permanent, so it deals with other things than creatures too. But I think it's still a 2 out of 5, and I think I would put the first copy in a deck, but maybe not so eager to put a second copy in the deck. And definitely I won't be picking this that high. Mostly because it's too easy to get rid of enchantments in this set. Otherwise it would be a 3 out of 5 easily. Paladin Shield, it's a trick that can save your creature from dying, and then you can move this equipment around at some point for cost of 3, which is quite a bit. I don't like this card. I think it's a 2 out of 5. Planar Ally. This is, I think, one of better white cards. 5 mana 3/3 flyer is nothing too amazing, at least nowadays. But the attack trigger is really decent. So yeah, I think it's a 3 out of 5. I would be happy to play this in any white deck. Potion of Healing is quite a bit of tempo loss. I mean, you will draw a card right away, but you pay 2 mana for it, and then you can pay 1 mana later to gain 3 life. So I think the only use for this card might be that you are having the white-green deck with plenty of life gain payoffs. Then you might want to play this. Normally it's just a 2 out of 5. Priest of the Ancient Lore, though, while it is good for the life gain synergies, this is just a decent card no matter what. A 3 mana 2/1, of course, unimpressive stats, but it draws you a card and gains life for the synergies you might have. I think it's an easy 3 out of 5. Ranger's Hawk. 1 mana flyers are okay turn 1, but later, when you draw at them later, it's not so impactful. But you can repeatedly venture into dungeon if this can't attack because of an opponent could block it. So I guess it's a playable card. I'm still willing to. I mean, I'm leaning towards giving it a 2 out of 5, but I understand it could be slightly better. But I don't know, maybe it's like a 2.5 out of 5. Let's say it's somewhere between 2 out of 5 and 3 out of 5. Alright, Steadfast Paladin. This is an easy 3 out of 5 because a 2 mana 2/2s, you always need 2-drops no matter what kind of deck you have, and Lifelink on a 2 mana 2/2 is definitely a nice ability to have, and even if you don't have the life gain synergies, but especially if you do. So this is just a solid playable 3 out of 5. Veteran Dungeoneer. 4 mana 3/4s aren't that amazing usually, but if you have plenty of venture in the deck, I think it's quite desirable in that case. So it is a 2 out of 5 if you don't have a lot of venture. If you do, it's a 3 out of 5. You hear something on watch. Alright, so this is actually, I like it quite a bit because this is 2 kind of situational effects, but they are kind of the opposite in the sense, well, of course the effects are not opposite of each other, but when you don't care about the other effect, you probably care about the other one. So in most situations you will be having good use for this card, and I think for that reason I will give it a 3 out of 5. I would always, it seems like this is something I would always main deck as a 1 copy at least, and then expect to have decent use for this no matter which mode it is going to be. So 3. You're ambushed on the road. That's a less impressive one of these model spells. It is a 1 mana thing that can do nice things, but it's a pretty low impact card because of course you have to think about what kind of cards you run in a deck. You want to have creatures that can win the game, and you want to have some interaction and maybe some card drawing, some colors and stuff like that. When you put this into your deck, it means you don't play one of those that I just mentioned. So am I going to ever cut a good creature to make room for this? Probably not. I think I consider this more like a sideboard card for best of 3, and I think it's going to be just a 2 out of 5. It is playable because for 1 mana you get a decent two decent options that are not that situational in the end. You usually get some use for this card, but it's still low impact enough that I'm never gonna pick it high. 2 out of 5. Air Cult, so this is the first blue common now. Air Cult Elemental, very nice card because the bounce ability as an enters the battlefield ability is always good. But and a 2/5 flyer isn't that bad, especially if you have some equipment to make it higher power. But it is a 6 mana card. You can't play a lot of 6 mana cards in deck, so I would say that the first copy of this in draft is like a 3 out of 5, and the further copies will go lower in their rating. Let's see the more blue cards. This is the first die rolling card that I see. So the roll a d20 of course means a 20-sided die, and well, this is just a solid playable 2 mana 2/1 is something you don't mind having early in the game to trade with opponent's creatures, or maybe attack for a couple of times if opponent doesn't have creatures, and then later in the game you can draw a card. And the die rolling in this card is not really anything like impactful. The variance is low enough. Either you draw a card or you have a slightly better draw effect. So it doesn't matter usually that much whether you are going to roll high or low, which is good because I don't want die rolling to actually decide any games in limited. So it's good that the variance is like controlled a bit here. But I think this is because of the activated ability, this is a 3 out of 5 because you always need 2 drops, and then it's not useless late in the game if you don't have any other use for your mana. Bar the Gate. I don't usually like counter spells, but if your deck has enough venture, this can be quite nice. So it is a 2 out of 5 normally, but with a lot of venture. I don't know what is lot, maybe like 5 or 6 other venture cards. Also, some of the cards are repeated, so it's hard to gauge what is the kind of amount that makes this card a 3 instead of 2, but we will learn it when we play the set. So 2 out of 5 or a 3 out of 5, depending on how much venture you have in your deck. Charmed Sleep would be close to 4 usually, but like I said, there are too many ways to my liking to get rid of enchantments for free in this set, so I don't actually like it too much. But it is very efficient removal spell. It doesn't prevent abilities that don't require tapping, but otherwise it deals with a wide range of creatures. So I think the first copy is still going to be a 3 out of 5, but maybe further copies a bit lower than that because I don't want to be too vulnerable to that incidental enchantment removal. Clever Conjurer basically untaps a land most often, so it's a 3 mana 2/3, not great stats, but when it basically adds more mana, it's gonna be fine. And sometimes you can just untap a creature. You can't do it as a surprise because this is a sorcery speed activation, but you can attack with a big guy and then untap it so that it can also block, which is sometimes useful. I think I will give it a 3 out of 5 because getting extra mana is quite significant effect. Contact Other Plane. Another nice die rolling card, which doesn't really matter too much what is the outcome. Of course you want to scry, but it's not a bad roll to just draw 2. I think this kind of draw effect is playable but nothing amazing. Maybe the first copy in your deck is a 3 out of 5, further copies lower than that. Ginny Windseer. So yeah, this is even lower impact the die roll. You don't mind actually if you get 1 to 9 or 10 to 19 or even 20. Of course, the higher the better, but the difference between these outcomes is not a lot. It's a 4 mana 3/3 flyer. Well, it is a 3 out of 5. Completely reasonable stats, but nothing amazing that it's not a 4. It's a 3 out of 5. Modern Guidance Polymorph. All right, fairly situational effect. You can use this in combat in response to some, let's say, damage-based removal that doesn't deal 4 damage, and you can just maybe attack for surprise, flying for damage. So there are some different applications, but as a whole, I'm not interested in playing these kind of effects. So I will give it a 2 out of 5 because it's not unplayable in my opinion. It's just not very good. So 2. Pixie Guide. So of 2 mana, 1/3 flyer is okay defensive card. 1 power flyer is not exactly clocking the opponent much. But if you have a bunch of die rolling, I mean, also something that actually has, significant effects because the ones I had earlier are not that much greater when you roll high. So I guess it's an additional reason to pick this and run this. But I think it's mostly the playability of this card is based on on your need to have this kind of defensive creature. If you care about having a 1/3 for 2, then it's okay. But I think in many decks it will not be that great. So it's a 2 out of 5 in most cases. But if you are really defensive, or maybe if you can equip this with some equipment, then it could be a 3 out of 5 in some decks. This Rhyme Shield Frost Giant is a hard to deal with 5 mana 4/5. Well, it's a ground guy. It can block, can attack. I guess you can equip it and it will be a bit tougher for the opponent to deal with. I guess it's okay, but how many decks just actively want these kind of cards? I don't think many decks actively want these kind of cards. So I'm gonna give it a 2 out of 5. Scion of Stygia. Yeah, this is maybe my least favorite of these die rolling cards because the difference in the effect here is actually going to often be huge. So if this card only had the first ability or the first outcome, it's barely playable in my opinion. If it always had the second outcome, it is above average in my opinion. So that's why I don't like this card, because this can really decide the outcome of the game when it happens to lock down a creature or not. But it is what it is. I'm gonna rate it as personally 2 out of 5 because I don't want to gamble on getting the better result here. But it can be in a tempo deck and in a very aggressive deck when you just care about even the 1 tap, it can be a 3 out of 5, but I think it's closer to 2 out of 5. Secret Door, 1 mana 0/4, pretty bad creature unless you are very defensive. This does have repeated venturing in the dungeon, but you have to do it on your own turn and use 5 mana for it, so it's not going to happen in every game that you have actually the mana for it. So I would say it's just in some decks it might be a 1 out of 5, but I guess it's mostly like a 2 out of 5, but I wouldn't play this in many decks. Shocking Grasp, it's an okay trick. 2 mana to draw a card and potentially win a combat. Yeah, it's gonna be a pretty solid card. Maybe I would run always one of these. Maybe not 2, but I would say the first copy is a 3 out of 5, and then following copies may be lower than that. Shortcut Seeker is at 4 mana 2/5, and I guess that is the rating 2. It has a nice ability if it gets to connect, but when you cast this for 4 mana, opponent usually at that stage can block a 2 mana creature. Now that said, black and blue in this set have, and there's also some colorless equipment I think, that can make creatures unblockable, or at least harder to block. So you will be able to connect with this thing more often than you would, maybe figure out based on the stats here. And venturing in the dungeon for basically free is definitely nice. And this is also a defensive card. 4 mana 2/5 can block a lot of things. So it's not a bad card, but it's not really something I'm very happy to play either. I think it's more often a 2 out of 5, but maybe in a specific deck where you really have many ways to make it unblockable, or you just care about having a 5 toughness blocker for 4 mana. It could be a 3 out of 5 in those decks, but in general 2 out of 5. Silver Raven is a 1 mana flyer, 1/1 stats. It is an artifact creature. There is some artifact synergy in the deck, in the set. I don't recall how many. I only quickly glimpsed through the spoiler before I started recording here. So this is pretty much the first reaction to some of these cards almost. So the Scry one is not strong enough. I think this is a 2 out of 5. It's not completely unplayable, but it would have to be some specific deck where I actively want to include this. So 2 out of 5. Soul Knife Spy though, I think this is a 4. A 3-1 3-2 is a bit bad stats, but it's not, it doesn't require much to make it reasonable. And when you get to draw cards with fairly low effort, considering also that this set has ways to make this unblockable, and sometimes you don't have to make it unblockable. Opponent has a blocker, you remove or bounce it, and that's it. So I think because the upside is so high, you might be able to draw multiple cards from this thing without any additional mana investment. And then the worst this card is a 3-mana 3-2, which is still acceptable given the upside. I think this is a 4 out of 5. And I will happily play multiple copies of this card and pick them fairly high. You come to a river, bounce spell, or one of these ways to make your things unblockable. Of course, this is mostly going to be the bounce spell, but then you have the find a crossing option here. It doesn't have to involve connecting with one of these things that get a benefit from connecting. You might just be able to make one of your bigger power creatures unblockable, and that's enough to win the game because opponent doesn't have that much life. So I would maybe play one of these in most decks, and maybe I would prioritize it a bit when I have these kind of effects here, like in the previous card. So I think usually it's still like the first copy is a 3 out of 5, but maybe further copies are 2 out of 5. You find the Villain's Lair. Well, it's a counter spell that if you leave mana up for it, you can also use the mana if the opponent doesn't have anything that you will counter. But of course, the Learn Their Secrets option here is sadly card disadvantage. You draw 2 and discard 2, and of course you also lose this card. But it might be better still to cash it in rather than not use your mana at all, especially if you know that you have a place for the following couple of turns that you can't even leave mana up for this thing. So I still don't like 3 mana counter spells, so I think I'm gonna give it a 2 out of 5, but it is still playable. You see a guard approach is a tap target creature, very situational, but then you can save your own creature from removal. Well, it's also quite situational. It's a pretty low impact card. I think it's a 2 out of 5. Then we got to black cards. Baleful Beholder. This is another card that can just randomly deal with opponent's enchantments. So yeah, not great to use those enchantment-based removal spells. This has a 6-mana 6/5 that can either give you a card advantage by making opponent sacrifice an enchantment, or make your guys have menace for that turn. If you have 2 or more creatures, that can be pretty significant. Or if you have those creatures that get benefit from when they deal combat damage to a player, which blue and black cards involve quite a few of. It can be pretty significant. I like this card quite a bit. 6-mana 6/5 are not that bad stats. Of course, you can't play that many 6-mana cards in a deck, so I would say the first copy is maybe a 3 out of 5, and the further copies not as high. Chattering Skeletons is mirroring the white 4-drop with Venture nicely. Both are 4 mana, and a white one was a 3/4. This is a 4/3. White one had a enters the battlefield ability. This has slightly worse because it's a death trigger, but the stats are a bit better when it's 4 power instead of 3. But the same story. It's a 2 out of 5 unless you have a bunch of Venture in the deck, and then it could be a 3 out of 5. And here more black cards. Deadly Dispute. Yeah, this draws you draws you 2 cards and creates a treasure token. Of course, you can also sacrifice an artifact, not just a creature for this, and an artifact, of course, includes a treasure token if you have those, and the black in this set has a bunch of treasure generation also. I think some other cards have to, some other colors have to, at least red, and I think green has some too. So it won't be that hard to have treasures around. I think the first copy of this card will be a 3 out of 5. Next one's probably lower than that. Devour Intellect. Well, this is the kind of payoff you want to have for, and it's not the only cards of its kind. So there are cards in this set that say if you used mana from a treasure to cast it, it does something better. And this definitely is completely unplayable without the treasure part, but quite nice if you do have treasure mana. So this is 1 out of 5 if you don't have enough, like several treasure generating abilities in the deck. And this is a 3 out of 5 if you can consistently cast this off from a treasure. Eyes of the Beholder. So I suppose in addition to the main eye, it has 10 of these eyes at the end of these, whatever extensions these are, and it's a 6 mana minus instant -11/-11, which is of course going to kill most creatures. And well, 6 mana removal is a bit limited in its usefulness because it's a lot of mana. But that said, because of the treasure generation, and black is good at that, you might be often able to have 6 mana available even if you haven't drawn 6 lands. So maybe the expensive cards in this set, especially black ones and red ones, because those colors can generate quite a few treasures. Maybe the more expensive cards are slightly more playable because you don't have to necessarily draw that amount of lands for them than you usually would have to draw. So I will give the first copy of this card a 3 out of 5, and the further copies will get like 2 out of 5. Fate's Reversal. Not usually an effect worth 2 mana, but if you have a bunch of venture in the deck, this can be a lot better because the dungeon trigger can be something significant. And this becomes actually a good card. So it is going to be a 3 out of 5 in decks with a lot of venture, otherwise 2 out of 5. Feign Death. Well, this is one of those lower impact tricks. I wouldn't ever pick this kind of card high, and I don't really feel like I need to put this in my deck, so it's going to be a 2 out of 5. Grim Bounty. Well, that's a good removal spell. You get to destroy any creature, well, or planeswalker, but that's not relevant in limited that often. And then you get a treasure token. That is a very good rider on this card. A lot better than the Strixhaven variant. It was the Mage Hunter's Onslaught, had a weird effect as the additional effect. Anyway, this is good, and I think I will play multiple of these cards because treasure tokens are very decent. Even if you don't have the synergy for it, you can just, splash something, get additional mana to have better turns later on, and so on. I will give it a 4 out of 5. Herald of Hadar. Okay, 5 mana 4/4. If you have 6 mana to sink into this thing, it will do some nice things, but how often that's gonna be the case? Not often. So 5 mana 4/4, not exciting. I think it's a 2 out of 5. Hired Hexblade. Well, this is a decent one. You always get a 2 mana 2/2, and if you draw this later, you might have some treasures lying around and you get to draw a card at the low cost of 1 life and, well, sacrificing the treasure too. So I like it. You always need 2 drops anyway, so this is one of the better ones, I think. Well, unless you have no ways to generate treasures. In that case, this is, of course, not very impressive. But assuming you have some treasure generation, this is going to be a 3 out of 5, otherwise 2 out of 5. Horde Robber. So interesting, 2 mana 1/3 is easy to block, but if the opponent won't block this, usually because they don't have creatures to block with, you get the treasure token, which is definitely a very nice ability. So I guess the usefulness of this card depends a bit on how easily can you make this connect. Or if you just care about having a 1/3 blocker, that's other thing. I would say usually this is just a 2 out of 5, but in some decks it can be a 3. Manticore, so this is a 4-mana flash 2/1 flyer, and it can kill a creature. Okay, that was dealt damage that turn, so that's decent on your own turn and on your opponent's turn. And it leaves a 2-power flyer behind. Yeah, I guess it's fine. It is a 3 out of 5. I'm not even gonna say this name, Precipitous Drop. I guess I said it anyway, but that's definitely not how you should pronounce it. Anyway, this is one of the. I guess this could be my favorite common because of how good it is. So you have a decent removal spell that helps you venture and even gets additional benefit if you actually completed the dungeon. I think this is easily a 4 out of 5. And I would pick this. I'm not sure if I'm gonna pick this over the 4-mana removal. It depends on how much you care about the venture. But very, very strong card. It is a 4 out of 5. Sepulchral Goal. 2-mana 2/1, sacrifice another creature, it gets +2/+2 as. Okay, it's not a sorcery speed activation, so this threatens to be a 4/3 if you have sacrifice fodder. Not sure how I like that, because 2-mana 2/1 is of course bad. So I guess if you have a lot of sacrifice fodder, this could be okay. But I'm gonna give it only a 2 out of 5. Shambling Ghast. Well, I guess this is one of the things you might want to sacrifice for it. Oh, and the black-green archetype has these effects that if a creature died that turn, do this and that. I guess this works in the black-green archetype, but I will still give it a 2 out of 5. Okay, and of course in some decks it could be a 3 out of 5. Sampling Ghast. So 1-mana 1/1. When it dies, things happen. You get a treasure token, or you get to usually finish off an opponent's creature, or just outright kill a 1-toughness creature. But only when it dies. You can't always control when it dies. I suppose if you have this thing, you can control when it dies, but it doesn't seem that interesting to me. Maybe if you have a lot of treasure payoffs, but I would say that default is 2 out of 5. Thieves' Tools. Yeah, this can make those things unblockable that black and blue has. So you get a treasure token for 2 mana, equip is 2, and then you don't get any kind of power or toughness boost, but you can make the creature unblockable. So this definitely combines well with those things that do stuff when they connect. I guess this could be a 3 out of 5 in certain decks, but in general just a 2. Vampire Spawn. When it enters the battlefield, each opponent loses 2 life and you gain 2. Well, I don't usually like 3-mana 2/3s, but with this life drain effect, I think the card is playable. Because this is, in a tight race, this can be significant. And sometimes you are not raising, sometimes you are only caring about the life gain, sometimes only about the life loss for the opponent. Yeah, I think I can give this like I suppose like a 2.5 out of 5, because yeah, they drain. No, normally a 3-mana 2/3 would be like almost a 1 or like a 1.5. Of course, we don't have vanilla 2/3s anymore, but that's the baseline. But this ability makes this be like a 2.5 out of 5. Alright, Yuan-Ti Fangblade. Alright, Snake Rogue. 3-mana 2/2, Death Touch, okay, that's fine. Wow, that is a nice ability. So either the opponent has to trade with this, or you get free ventures. Of course, the opponent can trade with this using like a 2-drop, because only 2 toughness. But that is nice. And defensively, of course, whenever you have a Death Touch creature, this eats opponents like a 6/6 and stuff like that. I like this card a lot. I want to give it like a 3.5 out of 5. It's not quite 4, but it is better than just a 3. Zombie Ogre, 5 mana 3/5. If some creature died that turn, but this only works at the beginning of your end step, not opponents. So once per turn cycle you can have this free venture only if a creature died on your turn. I don't like the stats. 3 mana, sorry, 5 mana 3/5. It is just too much mana for that stat. I guess if you have some very reliable way to trigger this multiple times, yeah, I would say mostly this is just a 2 out of 5. Maybe in some decks it could be better. And then we go to red commons. Armory Veteran. Okay, well that is a very good equipment payoff. Menace is a good ability. I'm gonna give this a 3 out of 5 because the baseline is a 2 mana 2/2, which is fine, and then the upside is very good when you get to equip this. 3 out of 5. Boots of Speed. +1/+0 and haste. Well, it's only 1 to play, 1 to equip. I guess in an aggressive deck that has equipment synergies, this can be a 3 out of 5. In most other decks, a 2 out of 5 because this is just such a low impact effect in general. But if you care about having creatures equipped, or creatures care about having equipment on them, it can be quite nice. Yeah, 3 or 2. Depending on the deck. Brazen Dwarf, 2 mana 1/3 again. When you roll 1 or more dice, this deals damage to each opponent. Well, I suppose this can give you some free damage if you have a bunch of die rolling effects, and if you also care about the defensive stats. Also, although if you care about defensive stats, maybe the direct damage to opponent only isn't high on your list of interesting things. So I guess these stats and the ability are kind of negative synergy with each other. So I guess I'll give it a 2 out of 5. Dragon's Fire. Yeah, this is just a straight 4 out of 5. It's a quality removal. 2 mana, 3 damage, and then if you have dragons, the set has a common dragon, a cycle of uncommon dragons, and of course some higher rarity dragons. And but the baseline is 3 damage at instant speed to a creature or planeswalker, so it makes it a 4 out of 5. Sometimes you can deal more if you have those dragons. Dueling Rapier. Okay, Flash. Alright, so let's see. Well, because it has the flash and the auto attach ability, I suppose it can be okay, because +2/+0 is a nice pump effect, a lot better than the white one, which has, it was the +0/+2 flash equipment that attaches automatically. Well, this works only in certain decks. Equip cost of 4 is a huge amount of mana, so I don't expect to be moving this around too much during the game. So it's hard to say. It can be, I think, in certain, if you want to have those equipment synergies and you don't have other equipment yet, this is a 3 out of 5, but in most decks it's like a 2 out of 5. Earth Cult Elemental, 6 mana 6/6. Well, size is good. So this enters the battlefield, you roll a die, sacrifices a permanent. Okay, so basically each player sacrifices a land, or each opponent sacrifices a land, or each opponent. Well, the 20 hits is of course very unlikely. I don't know. 6 mana 6/6. If you care about the size, it's okay, but I don't think it's a high priority ever. Unless you have like those cards that care about you having die rolling. That could make it a bit better. But I will give it a 2 out of 5. Faridesh Fireball. 5 mana instant. 5 damage to a creature or planeswalker, and then you either deal 2 damage to every player or only to opponent. Well, it's a 5 mana instant that kills most creatures. Yeah, I think I like it, but not 5 mana is a lot for removal, so I will give it a a 3 out of 5 only. Goblin Javeliner, so 1 mana 1/1 with haste, and it can't really be blocked by 1 toughness creatures, but this can just be, well, I suppose a 2 toughness creature trades with this thing. But it has only 1 power. Okay, so the thing is, if you have equipment in the deck that increase this thing's power, it can be an interesting aggressive card in a very, very hyper-aggressive deck. And it could be like a 3 out of 5 in that deck. But in most decks, mid-range and slow decks and those regular limited decks, it's going to be a 2 out of 5 or maybe even a 1 out of 5. Hoarding Ogre. Nice green. I like the art. So 4 mana 3/3. Attack, trigger, roll a die. Okay, you get treasure token or 2 or 3 of them. Wow, I like this. Of course, a 4 mana 3/3 is not good stats, but you can get treasure tokens with this thing. And those are quite nice. It depends a bit if you have those treasure payoffs a lot in your deck, but if you do, this is going to be quite nice. I think it still, the baseline is like a 2 out of 5, but in certain decks I can see it is being a 3 out of 5. Hobgoblin Captain, 2 mana 3/1. Okay, this is the first card with the Pack Tactics ability, so all of them are triggers that happen when you attacked with creatures with total power 6 or greater. That combat. And this thing gets first strike. And it's a 2 mana 3/1. Yeah, that's actually quite good of a 2-drop. It's a 3 out of 5. Improvised Weaponry. 3 mana, sorcery speed. 2 damage to any target. But you get the treasure token. So it's not the greatest removal spell, but you do get the treasure token. It is any target you can finish off the opponent with this thing. Could be sometimes relevant. Yeah, I would say it's a 3 out of 5. Jaded Sellsword. So this is the common dragon. I think this is the only common dragon. But it is here, just in case you have the burn spell. This has 4 power, so this can make the dragon burn spell deal 4 instead of 3. So if you use treasure mana, this is a first strike hasty creature. Yeah, this is really nice payoff for having those treasure generation, because this potentially dealing 4 extra damage as an enters the battlefield ability is pretty nice. So otherwise the stats are not that great. So I think if you don't have a lot of treasure generation, this is a 2 out of 5, but can be a 3 out of 5 when you have a bunch of treasures. And then we have a Kick in the Door. +1/+1 counter on target creature gains haste. Venture into dungeon. Okay, can't be blocked by walls, which I suppose there are few of in the set. Well, you have to be pretty heavily invested into the venture to make this card playable. I think in most decks it is a 1 out of 5, but it can be a 2 out of 5, maybe even 2.5 out of 5 in decks that have a lot of venture. Plundering Barbarian. 3 mana 2/2, destroys an artifact or creates a treasure token. Okay, stats are very bad for a 2/2, but given that the set has a bunch of equipment, for example, the destroy target artifact is going to be quite relevant often. I could see sideboarding this in or out in best of 3. I'm not sure if this is more like a main deck card, but I could easily play this in best of 1. I wouldn't mind at all. You always have the option to make a treasure token. So I think it's a 3 out of 5. Because if you get to destroy an artifact that is significant, it can be sometimes just a treasure, which is nice to destroy, but if the opponent has an equipment and you get to kill it, and you still have a 2/2, and you only played 3 mana, that's going to be great. So it is a 3 out of 5. Price of Loyalty. So this is one of those act of treason variants. I don't really like this. Is such a situational effect. You have to be so aggressive, and if you have an aggressive deck, maybe you just want to play more creatures and pump effects and equipment and all that. I don't like these effects usually at all, so I'm gonna give this thing a 2 out of 5. Did I keep a rating to this? Yeah, I did. Swarming Goblins. So 5 mana 4/3 that comes with a 1, 2, or maybe sometimes even 3 1/1 tokens. So the minimum you get is a 4/3 and a 1/1 for 5 mana, and over 55% of the time you actually get 2 or even 3 of those tokens. Well, the tokens are good with equipment. If you have equipment, this is a better card. If you don't have, it's not such a great one. So it's going to be a 2 out of 5 or maybe like a 2.5 out of 5, depending on the deck. Unexpected Windfall. So 4 mana instant. Discard a card, draw 2, create 2 treasure tokens. Okay, if you care about treasure tokens, this is a nice card. Otherwise, not so great. So yeah, it's 2 out of 5. Maybe 2.5 out of 5 if you care about the treasures. Valor Singer is 3 mana 2/3, but at the beginning of combat on your turn, any creature you control gets +1/+0. So basically this attacks as a 3/3 and also can pump your other creatures, including the turn you play this. I like it. I think I will give this card a 3 out of 5. You come to the Gnoll camp. Is it Gnoll? Well, whatever. Okay, 2 mana. Well, 2 situationally good effects. Yeah, I guess it's okay. Let's say 2.5 out of 5. These are still kind of situational. Sometimes you, of course, just win when you get to say that 2 of your opponent's blockers don't get to block and you just attack for the lethal, but that's not going to happen always. And +3, +1 as a combat trick is not great because the 1 toughness doesn't often help your creature survive. So I will give it a 2.5 out of 5. And let's go to green cards. So this is okay. At the beginning of your end step, creature died. This grows. Okay, I suppose the ideal situation is that you can play this on a turn when you attacked or somehow a creature died that turn, and then this is immediately a 4/4. So if that doesn't happen, you play it as a 3/3, and then the opponent can try to play around the effect. I guess it's like a 2.5 out of 5, maybe a 3 if you have an easier time to ensure the trigger happens. Bull's Strength. 2 mana 2. Yeah, it's a basic trick. It's a 2.5 out of 5. Not all decks want combat tricks, but those that do, yeah, they really want them. So it could be a 3 in some decks, but on average 2.5 out of 5. Circle of the Moon Druid. So it's a 3 mana 2/4. Except if it's your turn, it is a 4/2. Well, it blocks opponent's 2-drops but can't attack past them, but it can trade with them. Yeah, I don't like the 3 mana 4/2 part, and I don't like the 3 mana 2/4 part either, although it is better that on the opponent's turn this is a 2/4 when you're going to block. But this is too easy to block with 2-drops and trade with him, so I don't like it. It's a 2 out of 5. And then there is a sorcery speed. Okay, target creature gets +3, +3, and must be blocked. So you can't say which creature blocks this, your creature, but some of the opponent's creatures has to block. I don't like it. It's more like a sideboard card. If opponent has some, yeah, they can make the decision what blocks. Yeah, I will give it maybe like a 2 out of 5. And then there's a Dire Wolf Prowler, which is 3 mana 2/2. It can also get, so this can be a 4/4 hasty creature on turn 5. You can make it always a 4/4 for 2 mana. Yeah, I like it. This has the threat of activation, which means that you can attack into a 3/3 especially if opponent is tapped out and they basically can't block it. Yeah, I think even though it is a 3 mana 2/2, the activation is cheap enough. But maybe it's okay, but maybe it's not that amazing. So let's say 2.5 out of 5. And then we have a 5 mana 4/1 reach that comes with a Wolf Pal. So this trades with any flyer mostly, and then you have a 2/2 token. All this for 5 mana. It also has 1 toughness, which can be a liability. I'm not a big fan of the card. I think I'll say 2.5 out of 5. Find the path. So you can make a land produce 2 green instead of, well, okay, it still has the ability to produce whatever it naturally has, but in addition to that, it can tap for 2 green. But you get a venture ability as a ETB here. So if you have a lot of venture and if you care about ramping up, this can be a 3 out of 5. But in some decks, it's just a 2 out of 5. Gnoll Hunter, 2 mana 2/2, which pretty nice pack tactics ability, permanent counter, and the floor of the card is a 2 mana 2/2. I like it quite a bit. It is a 3 out of 5. Hill Giant, Herd Gorger. Alright, so 6 mana 7/6. You gain 3 life. Well, if you have a life gain synergies, this is slightly better. Otherwise, it's just your random 6-drop, completely replaceable. I mean, you can use any 6-drop. It's not a particularly useful one, so I guess it's like a 2.5 out of 5. I understand this is like the Ravenous Lindworm in the Kaldheim, which was great, but it was only good when the format was, the way it was. It was a good effect, and it gained 4 life. This gains only 3 life. This has additional point of power though, so even though the Ravenous Lindworm was good in Kaldheim, that doesn't mean that this card is going to be that great in this set. So we will see. I will start by rating it at 2.5 out of 5. Inspiring Bard. So it's a 4 mana 3/3 that you can gain life, or you can give some of your creatures a boost. So it can attack and deal additional damage. I mean, of course, it can attack always, but I mean, you might be able to attack so that the opponent won't be blocking it because of the extra boost. So this has an aggressive and a defensive mode, and of course the life gain synergy mode. I think usually you might want to have some life gain synergy to run this, or be very aggressive. So and this also helps trigger the pack tactics abilities. So this can be a 3 out of 5, but in decks that cannot really utilize either of these options that well, it's a 2 out of 5. And Neverwinter Dryad, 1 mana 1/1. You can sacrifice it to get a basic forest. So mana acceleration. You play this on turn 1, turn 2 you attack and then sack, or block and sack. It doesn't fix mana, but it ramps you up. So if you care about the ramp, sure, 3 out of 5. If not, 2 out of 5. Good thing about this card is that this plays into the black-green archetypes as synergies, this dies and triggers those effects that care about creatures dying. So keep that in mind. This is probably a very good card in those decks that have those effects or abilities. Old Bear, okay, funny art here. It is a bird bear. 5 mana 4/4 trample. Okay, what? This is a common. 5 mana 4/4 trample. When it enters the battlefield, draw a card. Yeah, sure. It's not quite Saddle's Packmate because it had the great ability to, you can foretell it and play it for cheap. But this is still very good. Is it even a 4 out of 5? It's very close. Let's say 3.5 out of 5. Plummet. Well, sideboard card, don't play in best of 1. Pick this in best of 3 drafts for your sideboard fairly highly, like as it was a 3 out of 5 rated card. In best of 1, you can just ignore it. Ranger's Longbow. 2 mana to play, 3 to equip, +2/+1 and reach. Well, this does make the opponent's plan to attack with flyers quite bad. But if opponent doesn't have flyers, this is not very good. +2/+1 for this cost. Yeah, it is more maybe like a sideboard card. Yeah, I guess I'll give it a 2 out of 5 because it's quite expensive to play and move around. Yeah, let's give it a 2 out of 5, but as a sideboard card in best of 3, pick it as if it was a 3 out of 5. Scaled Herbalist, 2 mana 1/3. So every color has 2 mana 1/3s, right? Do they? Yeah, even red had. I think every color has a common 2 mana 1/3. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, well, this ability is pretty situational. You don't always have extra lands in your hand, and then this is just, defensive creatures. Usually you don't care about this kind of stat line, so 2 out of 5. Spoils of the Hunt, so 3 mana instant. Target creature deals. Oh, so this is the bite effect. It's not a fight, and if you use treasures, you get even better result here because of the power pump. I think this is good, but not really like a premium removal. It is a 3 out of 5 in my opinion. Sylvan Shepherd, another die rolling card. Well, you can live. Okay, well, it has vigilance, which is, I guess, a slight boost, but it is a 3 mana 2/3, so definitely not playable in decks that don't care about life gain synergies. But if you have life gain synergies, I could see playing it. It is a 2 out of 5 and maybe 2.5 out of 5, even 3 in decks that have life gain synergies, but in decks that don't have 2 out of 5. Underdark Basilisk, 2 mana 1/2 Death Touch. Well, this is a blocker if you want to have a blocker. You will play this. It's also a 2-drop. So if you have a defensive deck that has a strong late game, this is a fine card. In aggressive decks, it's not a fine card. So it is a 2 out of 5, but it can be a 3 out of 5 in certain decks. You find a Cursed Idol. So this is another. Well, this is not kind of a. This is a way to destroy an enchantment, but this is not a. This doesn't come like as a side effect. You have to use the entire card to destroy an enchantment. But it's still one of the reasons I don't like the enchantment-based removals in the set. Create a treasure token and venture into the dungeon is a pretty nice, thing to do when you don't have targets for the first 2 abilities. So I think this is playable in best of 1, 2, and I can main deck this in best of 3 because destroying an artifact can also be pretty useful with all the equipment running around. And of course, this is better the more venture you have in the deck. I think if you have a bunch of venture, this is a 3 out of 5. If you don't have a lot of venture, it is just a 2 out of 5 perhaps, or 2.5 maybe, because you might find an enchantment or artifact to kill often enough. And maybe you can utilize the treasure token. So that was all the green cards. So now we get to the colorless cards. So artifacts, great axe. This is bad. I mean, +4/+0. This doesn't have even a toughness boost, and you have to pay total of 6 mana to get anything out of this, and then you have to use 5 mana to move this around. So I would say this is just a 1.5 out of 5. I can't see what kind of deck I would play this in. I mean, 4 power is a lot, but there's not. It's just too much mana to move around. Yeah, it is too much. Leather armor. Okay, +1 and word, and you can equip it for free. But I mean, can there be any more lower impact card? This is not even a big taxing effect. If the word value was something larger than that, maybe, but it's a 1 out of 5. I don't see ever playing this card. It is a 1. Mimic. Okay, so yeah, this is a treasure token, so it has the treasure, but it's not a treasure token, but it is an artifact treasure which has the natural ability of, you know, adding mana by sacrificing it. So that's of course a bad use for the card. You pay 2 mana to get 1 mana, and then it's gone. Not good. Mimic becomes a shapeshifter 3/3, but you have to sink 2 mana every time you wanna use it. I don't think this really is a good card. No, I don't. It's too expensive to use. So I'm gonna say it's a 1 out of 5. Spare dagger. 1 to play, 1 to equip, so it can't be very good. +1/+0. You may sacrifice this. I guess you throw it. Deals 1 damage to any target. So yeah, it's not a good card. I guess there's one use for this, and it's as a sideboard option in best of 3. When the opponent has several 1 toughness targets. Otherwise, this is just too low impact. So it's gonna be a 1 out of 5, but could be useful as a sideboard card. So maybe like a 2 out of 5 in best of 3. Spiked Pit Trap. 1 mana flash, and then you can deal 5 damage to a creature or do the same and create a treasure token. All for the cheap cost of 6 mana. Not good. I don't know, it's just not good. Yeah, it is a 1.5 out of 5. The artifacts in this set haven't been very impressive. And that, I suppose, was the... Wait a minute. That wasn't all right. Yeah, there's only one. No, that wasn't. Yeah, that was a bunch of artifacts. These are only the commons. There will be uncommons too, I think. So yeah, let's go there. So that was all the artifact commons. Then there's Evolving Wilds, which is always going to be a fantastic card because you want to have mana fixing. This set doesn't have common lands. I mean those. I meant this is a common land, but I meant the common entries tapped lands that produce 2 different colors. Some sets have those. This set doesn't. It has Evolving Wilds though. Picked is high. I think it's a 3 out of 5, maybe even 3.5 out of 5. Usually. Of course, this set has one way to enable splashes, which is present in at least 3 colors, and it's of course those treasure tokens. So keep in mind if you want to make some splashes, treasures can make mana of any color. But Evolving Wild is a strong card, unless you are playing monocolored deck, of course, which I guess could be possible. But if you have more than 1 color, pick this as at least as a 3 out of 5 and always play it. I would play like 3 to 4, maybe 4, but at least 3 Evolving Wilds I would play. And then these are the basic lands. I think that's all the cards. Yeah, there's only basic lands. So that was the all the commons. Let's go to uncommons. Actually, this video is getting a lot of length anyway. I try to be a bit faster maybe. So Blink Dog. Double strike 1/1. I don't know what the teleport ability is for. Yeah, you can save it from removal, but you are not gonna have 4 mana up that often. This is good when you have equipment, otherwise not good. So 3 out of 5 in an equipment deck, and otherwise maybe like a 1.5 out of 5. Cleric class. Oh yeah, these are the class cards. These are interesting, but let's see how good is this one. 1 mana. Okay, the first level does nothing really of interest. Second level does do a bunch of things in a deck that has life gain energies, and then you can return a creature card. Any creature card, not only small ones, and you gain some life. Okay, so this is good in a dedicated life gain deck. Otherwise, paying 10 mana total to get 1 creature back from your graveyard to the battlefield is too expensive. So I think in a life gain deck, this can be a 3 out of 5. Otherwise, it's just basically unplayable. So 1 out of 5. Cloister Gargoyle. So this is a 3/4 flyer when you have completed a dungeon, and this gets you 1 venture. So definitely a great card if you have a bunch of venture. This is, I think, easily a could be even a 4 out of 5 in a dedicated venture deck. And then it's of course 1 out of 5 in a deck that doesn't have venture. So this really, I guess the average maybe it's like a 3 out of 5 in a deck that has a bunch of venture but doesn't, easily guarantee completing a dungeon. Divine Smite. This is the color hate cycle, the first of those. So definitely it's a great card against black. So a good sideboard card in best of 3, but is this playable in best of 1 or best of 3 main deck? Phases out. An opponent control, so you can't even save your own creatures from removal. I don't think it's that great as a main deck card. No, it's not. If opponent doesn't play black creatures, well, yeah, or planeswalkers, it really does nothing. Well, it does something, but it's not good enough. So it's a sideboard 3, but otherwise it's like a 1.5 out of 5. Dragon's Disciple, 2 mana 1/3, and okay, it's gonna be a 2/4 if you have dragons. Well, without the dragons, this is not good. So, like a 1.5 out of 5. If you have a bunch of dragons, I don't know how easy that's gonna be, but if you do, maybe if you play red-white and have like 3 of those commons and some of the uncommons, and yeah, I don't know. I don't think this is gonna be that good. Often, if you have like, I don't know, 6 dragons for some reason, maybe then it's but it's still going to be a 2/4 only. Yeah, I don't like it. It's gonna be a 1.5 out of 5. Ingenious Smith. Look at okay, well, this actually gets usually an equipment and then also grows permanently. Well, in a deck that has artifacts, they don't have to be equipment, of course. There are some artifact creatures too. This can be a 3 out of 5, even better. Of course, it really depends on the count. So this can go up to 4 out of 5. And of course, at worst, it's unplayable. So it really depends on the amount of artifacts. I can't give it a 1 rating. Keen-eared Sentry. Okay, you have hexproof, but it's just a 2 mana 2/1. Opponents can't venture more than once each turn. Well, that could host some opponents a bit, but they still get the 1 per turn. And I get hexproof. How much do I care about that in limited? I don't think I care about that much. And a 2 mana 2/1 definitely is not that great. I think it's pretty bad, so 1.5 out of 5. Monk of the Open Hand, 1 mana 1/1. Second spell each turn. Okay, so when you double spell once, this is a 1 mana 2/2 already. And then this can still continue growing. Yeah, I don't mind. Shouldn't be that hard to have some double spell turns. So I'm gonna give it a 3 out of 5. And this thing, 3 mana 3/2. Okay, so you don't get card advantage, but if you have an enchantment or few in your deck, you get to draw them. Well, I don't like the enchantment removal. I mean the enchantment based removal in the set, like I said. So I'm not sure how often am I gonna have an enchantment. But I suppose if I have like 2 or more good enchantments in the deck, maybe this is good. Otherwise, a 3 mana 3/2 just isn't that great. So it's 2 out of 5 to like a 3 out of 5, depending on if you have enchantments you want to fetch or not. Plate armor. Okay, that's a +3/+3. How much? And ward 1. Equip is 3, but this costs 1 less for each other. Well, you don't want to have that many equipment in your limited decks, but I suppose you could have like one other in the battlefield. And +3/+3 is no joke. It isn't actually relevant. I mean, even +2/2 is relevant, but of course +3/3 is even better. So I could see playing this in any deck. It's such a massive boost, even though it's very expensive. It could cost even 6 mana to get even the first use of it. But yeah, I will give this still a 3 out of 5. Portable hole. Okay, this deals with a small thing with only 1 mana. Non-land permanent, so it also works on tokens, but I don't know if there are a lot of big tokens in this set. It's no more Strixhaven with its fractals. I think it's a pretty limited in its usefulness. Seems like more of a constructed card. I think I will give it a 2 out of 5. Rally Manowar. So this targets 2 creatures if you want to. Lifelink, first strike. 3 mana trick. It's quite a lot of for 3 mana, but you can get a 2-for-1 with this and a bunch of life too. Yeah, I think I'm willing to try this in any deck at first at least. So I will give it a 3 out of 5, but it could go lower than that if it's too clumsy. White Dragon, yeah, this is the dragon cycle. It's an uncommon cycle for each color, and the names are, I guess these are some Dungeons and Dragons actual dragons with each of the colors that happens to be the same colors as the magic colors. So White Dragon is a 6 mana 4/4, which will tap and lock down a creature for 1 turn. That is amazing because the 6 mana 4/4 flyer alone is okay, but nothing amazing. But when you get to tap and hold a creature tapped for 1 turn, it's fantastic. So this is, I would say, this is a 4 out of 5. And this thing, so the first blue uncommon is 5 mana 3/4. And you can return an instant or sorcery to your hand or the top of your library from the graveyard, depending on how you roll. I suppose you have a 55% chance to get it to your hand, so half the time. 5 mana 3/4, a bit overcosted, but you can. And of course, usually the instant or sorcery is something good in the graveyard, so you don't mind if you have to kind of use your next draw step on it. I think this is a 3.5 out of 5. Blue Dragon. Okay, so what does this do? It's a 7 mana 5/5, so it is bigger than the White Dragon, also 1 mana more expensive. And well, if you don't have treasure tokens, it might be hard to get to 7 mana in some games, but let's see the ability. Okay, this until your next turn. So you can basically, neutralize opponent's creatures to some extent. But I guess the main idea is that this is a 5/5 flyer. I don't give this a 4 rating because 7 mana is so much. I think I will give this still a 3.5 out of 5 because a 5/5 flyer is a huge stat line. Displacer Beast. Yeah, I like this a lot. When this enters the battlefield, venture into dungeon. And then if you really have time to do this 7 mana cycle here to return and replay, you can venture more. But it's as a 3 mana 3/2 that ventures as an ETB. That's enough value for the 3/2 stat line that I like it quite a bit. It is a 3 out of 5 to me. And this Apprentice, so it's a 2/2 flyer for 3, acceptable. Okay, it ventures as an ETB, though that's nice. And then, okay, if you have completed the dungeon, you can do some nice stuff. You can basically target your own creature or an opponent's creature. Okay, so, well, the first two abilities are pretty nice already for a 3 mana 2/2. So I'm gonna give this card, I think, a 3.5 out of 5. Fabled Trickster. So 3 mana 2/2. Oh. Now this is a reason to have all kinds of die rolling cards. You get free flyers from this thing. Yeah, this can be very good. Of course, you need the synergy. If you don't have anything, this is just 3 mana 2/2, basically unplayable. But if you have some amount of die rolling, it's gonna be playable. And if you have a lot of them, it's gonna be even more playable. So this goes from 1 to, I guess, even 4, depending on the deck. Fly. Okay, so I don't like this card in decks that don't have a lot of venture, but if you have already found some venture cards, this can be pretty impactful. Repeated venturing. And of course, giving a creature flying can be nice. Of course, it's not worth an enchantment card usually, but if you get to venture and if you have other venture cards, yeah, it can snowball a bit. If the opponent doesn't immediately deal with it, yeah, it really depends on the deck. It can be like unplayable, or it can be like a 3 out of 5, from 1 to 3. Guild Thief, 2 mana 1/1. It grows permanently. And if you have mana, you can actually make it connect. So yeah, I like this card a bit. Quite a bit, I mean. Yeah, I would say this is a 3.5 out of 5. It is expensive to use, but sometimes you can just remove the potential blockers, and then this gets the counter for free. And this will win the game in any kind of stall situation. It is a 3.5. And here, Power of Persuasion. So a 3 mana sorcery. Bounce a creature, put it on top of the library, or gain control of it until the end of your next turn. So, okay, so you doesn't give haste, of course, because blue doesn't really give haste, but you can still attack with it on your next turn. But it's the critical success that's not going to happen often. So basically, it is a 3 mana bounce at sorcery speed that sometimes makes the opponent skip their next draw step. So the average is, but I don't like to play sorcery speed bounce if it is 3 mana. I don't think it's very good. I'm gonna give it a 2 out of 5. Ray of Frost. Okay, another enchantment based removal spell. Yeah, it is a good one, but well, it is only 2 mana, so if your opponent kills it, maybe this does something in the meanwhile. Yeah, maybe the first copy is like a... And of course this is better against red, so it's a more decent sideboard card. Red can't even get rid of enchantments, but of course if opponent pairs it with white, black, or green, and they can get rid of enchantments. But maybe the first copy is like a 2.5 out of 5. And if you find more of these, I wouldn't pick the other ones that highly, unless I'm playing best of 3 and I want to pick them from for my sideboard. Split the party. So 5 mana sorcery. Return half the creatures they control to their owner's hand. So this doesn't target the creatures. You get to decide which creatures to bounce when the spell resolves. If they have 3 creatures, you return 2. A bit situational. You can never bounce all the creatures for a nice alpha strike. That's the problem. I guess if they have 1 creature, yeah, but then you pay 5 mana to bounce a creature. I don't think I like it. I think it's only a 2 maybe a 2 out of 5. Sudden insight. Draw a card for each different mana value among non-land cards in your graveyard. So let's see, in limited you usually have a 2, 3, 4, 5. Those are, yeah, I guess you will on average, of course in a late game you can draw even 4 cards, 5 cards maybe even, but maybe not 5 that often. But I suppose now if you would have to draw like, it's an instant. Is 3 enough? 3 should be pretty easy. Some combination of 2, 3, 4, or 5. One of them can be missing. It's tough. I guess it can be a 3, but probably not that much higher. Let's say it's a 3 out of 5. Trickster's Talisman. So it's an equipment. Equip cost is 2, 1 to cast. Create a token that's a copy of this creature. I'm not sure if I like this card too much, because as an equipment it's a +1/+1, not impactful enough. And you can turn this equipment into a copy of the creature it's equipping, but how often that is gonna be something great? I don't think this is gonna be universally useful. Maybe in some decks where you have a lot of creatures you don't mind copying, but I would say it's a 2 out of 5. Maybe even 1.5 out of 5 because the stat boost is so bad. Wizard class. Well, the first ability does nothing, but then you can draw 2 cards. Okay, that's I like. So when you activate the level 2, that's all you need to get back the, it's worth the 4 mana and the 1 card. And then if you have, okay, this is very good, because if you can actually activate the third level, you have a very nice ability, because of course you draw a card every turn in your draw step, so you get 3 counters. I think this is very nice class. I will give this. Should I give it 5 mana is a lot though. It's definitely going to be a 3.5. Could be a 4, but let's be conservative here with the ratings, and 3.5 out of 5. That was the last blue card. Black Dragon is another 7 mana card, and this is not even a 5/5, it's only a 4/4. -3/-3. This kills a small to medium-sized creature. Yeah, it's 7 mana is just so much. Okay, black has a lot of treasure making though. Okay, given that black can make so easily treasures, the 7 mana shouldn't be a big problem here. And this is a 4/4 flyer that also can kill something from the opponent's side, which is of course very nice. 2 for 1. So I will give this a 4 out of 5 because black shouldn't have that much trouble getting to 7 mana. Check for traps. Okay, so this is the discard for 2 mana where you get to choose a non-land card. This has slight upside where you can make them lose life, or you lose life if you don't pick an instant or a flash card right. It's a reasonable effect. I will give it a 3 out of 5. How about this thing? Death Priest of Miracle, 4 mana 2/2. Okay, a lot for these things. And okay, so you can actually make treasures with this thing. No, not treasures, skeletons. And as long as this thing is alive, they're gonna be 2/2s. So of course 4 mana 2/2 is bad, but this is a pretty high impact ability. I'm not sure how to rate it. I guess I'll give it a 3.5, just because of the potential it can have to snowball out of control. But it really requires things to go your way, so it's not a 4, I think. But I'm willing to give it a 3.5. So Demogorgon's Clutches. Okay, so this is the Mind Rot variant. This time it's an uncommon. Discards 2 mills 2, loses 2 life. Okay, this has the loses 2 life. That is not irrelevant for these kind of effects. I guess an aggressive deck might be slightly more willing to run this card. But still, the Mind Rot variant is not that great in most limited formats, so I think I'm gonna give it a 2 out of 5. Trider. So, black card with reach. Well, it is a spider. 5 mana 4/3. Okay, so definitely as a 5 mana 4/3 reach, this card is overcosted. But if you get to connect even once, you get the spider token with menace and reach. 2/1 even. I like that. I'm willing to try to make this work. Which means that I'm going to give it a rating of, I guess it's still so bad when you don't get to connect. So it's gonna be like still a 3.5, because the upside is real here. If you get a free 2/1 here, it's gonna be pretty nice. So 3.5 out of 5. Dungeon Crawler. 1 mana 2/1. Enters tapped. Yeah, I mean, it's a 1 mana 2/1. That's pretty decent stat line in limited. So it's gonna be a 3 point. No, it's gonna be a 3 out of 5, because it's still gonna trade with everything. But in a very aggressive deck, if you get to play this on turn 1, that could be very sweet. But it's still gonna be not that amazing later on in the game. So 3 out of 5. Grim Wanderer. Flash. 2 mana 5/3. Cast this spell only if a creature died this turn. Well, you are paying only 2 mana for a 5/3, and it is flash, so the creature, it doesn't matter whether it dies on your turn or the opponent's. This has to be good enough, right? In limited, creatures die all the time. 2 mana for 5/3 is so good value. So I'm gonna give this. I'm thinking about the 4 actually, because it is a very decent stat line. Now it does trade with 3 drops, but it can also trade with 5 drops. Oh yeah, I'll give it a 4. But okay, let's say like not as good 4 as the black removal spell. So maybe like 4 minus if that's a thing. Let's say 4 minus out of 5. Lightfoot Rogue. 2 mana 2/1. Attack trigger, roll or die. Death touch. Oh, it always has death touch. Sometimes attacks as a 3 power creature, and well, this is fantastic, of course. This first strike and death touch and 5 power for the critical success, but I'm not gonna evaluate these die rolling cards based on the 20 result because it's so rare. 5% chance only to happen. So always attacks as a death toucher. Sometimes as a 3 power. It doesn't block as a death toucher, but it synergizes with all the roll a die effects, which there are some. Okay, let's give it a 3 out of 5. I don't think it's that much better than a random 2-drop. I will give it a 3 out of 5. Okay, power word kill. I didn't actually check how many angels, demons, devils, and dragons in the set are, but I think that most of the commons and uncommons are something else. So this is a 2 mana removal spell. So it's just a 4 out of 5, probably 4 plus or 4.5 out of 5. How do you say it? Better than the other black common removal, which are fantastic too. Ray of Enfeeblement. Yeah, this is the hating white here. Of course, against white decks, amazing. So in best of 3, I would pick this very high just for the sideboard. And it's also a main deckable card. -4, -1 is acceptable. So maybe I will give this a rating of, I guess it's like a rating of 3 out of 5 because on average 40% of the decks have white, assuming each color pair is equally likely to show up as your opponent. There's a 40% chance that opponent has white in their deck. And because it's so great against white decks, and it's still okay, I mean, nothing exciting, but okay 1 mana card against other decks, I think it's a 3 out of 5. Rebirth Talisman. Equipped creature gets death touch on attack. So definitely this works very nicely with the things like the low power creatures that get some bonus when it connects to the opponent. If you give them death touch, the opponent has to trade with them despite their low power, or just let you get the benefit. Oh, and this, yeah, the other part is interesting too. Them losing 2 and you gaining 2. And when it attacks alone, it will have death touch. So you won't jump attack unless the opponent has like a first strike blocker. But other than that, and it's only like 1 to cast, 2 to equip. I like this quite a bit. I mean, drain of 2 life is no joke. Wow. I'm gonna give it a 4 out of 5. I feel like this is good. I might be overvaluing it, but it seems like, I mean, the rest of your creatures will stay and block, and this will, I will give it a 4 out of 5. Maybe like a 4 minus. Okay, let's say 4 minus out of 5. I wouldn't pick this over the black common removal. That's good. They're 2 good ones. But after that, surely 4 minus. Skullport Merchant. You get a treasure token from your 3 mana 1/4. Okay, it's a defensive stat line, but it's okay for 3 mana. And you can, okay, well, you can just sacrifice the treasure token for a card, and then of course other treasures too, and other creatures too. Usually those ones that are about to die. It will cost 2 mana, but yeah, I like this a lot because this by itself, buys back the card, and then it's only upside after that. I will give this as a rating of 3.5 out of 5. Warlock class. So 1 mana, pretty weak level 1, but level 2 only costs 2. Okay, you get to get the card back. I like it. So for 3 mana you at least get the card back. And then there's a 7 mana level 3. This has to be something good. Okay, interesting. So that helps you clock out the opponent faster, and of course it does synergize with the level 1 here, making the life loss into more life losses. So because of the level 2 and the reasonably fun potential of level 3, I will give this card 3 out of 5. But only 3 because the 7 mana is quite a lot. You don't always get there. Now that was the last black uncommon. Barbarian class is the first red one. Okay, so you get extra die rolls at level 2, more die rolling, isn't it? Well, that is a good one. And then you have a haste all of your creatures. So this doesn't give you any permanent bonus. But I guess if you have enough die rolling, of course you have to have die rolling. You don't play this just to give all your creatures haste by paying total of 6 mana. That's bad. But with plenty of die rolling in the deck, and there are a bunch of commons with die rolling. Now +2/+1 menace. That is quite good. So this is, I think, a 3 out of 5 index that have a reasonable number of die rolling, like 5 or more, and it's just gonna be a 1 out of 5 in other decks. Battlecry Goblin. Okay, this is good. I remember seeing this earlier when it was spoiled. 2 mana 2/2. Very nice pack tactics ability. You get attacking 1/1 token, and this gives goblins you control +1/+0. This is a goblin himself, so can pump itself, which is great. So this is easily a much better than an average 2-drop. I think I'm willing to give this thing, well, it's maybe a 3.5 out of 5. Burning Hands, 2 mana, 2 damage to a creature or planeswalker, and kills green creatures. Yeah, well, the same thing. 40% of your opponents will feature green cards in their deck, and of course, green has a lot of creatures. So, given that the worst case scenario is still 2 mana, 2 damage, it's fine, and then very good against green decks. I would say this is a 3.5 out of 5. Chaos Channeler, 4 mana, 4/3. Attack trigger. Okay, you get cards. Of course, this might get, killed in the combat, but you can still play the card you exiled. Okay, I like this. I like this a lot. So it's gonna be how useful exactly? It's easy to block in combat so that it dies. So you don't often get, multiple times of this. So maybe that is the reason I won't be giving it a 4-. I will give it a 3.5 out of 5. Critical hit. 2 mana instant. Double strike. Alright, yeah. Natural 20. Yeah, okay. It's just, double strike without any power pump is not good enough. I don't like it. I guess if you have like a big trampler, 5 power. Green had a 4 power trampler as common. Or did it have trample? I think it did. It's not good enough. It's at the natural 20. You can just forget it. It's too rarely going to happen that you shouldn't really count on it. So I'm gonna give it a 1.5 out of 5. Goblin Morningstar. +1/+0 and trample. Okay, trample is good. Okay, this comes with a friend. 1/1, and 55% of the time you actually get to equip it. So it will be a 2 mana 2/1, and then it leaves you a +1/+0 equipment. And even if you get the 1 to 9 roll, you still get the goblin token, and if you want to, you can equip it by paying 2. I like it quite a bit, and I will give it a 3.5 out of 5. Okay, 3 mana 3/3 haste. Well, that's simple. It's definitely above average, so it's going to be a 3.5 out of 5. It is a double caster, but just make sure you have enough red sources in the deck when you play a double caster 3 mana card. Magic Missile. 3 mana sorcery, 3 damage as you choose, divided as you choose. Well, that's fantastic. Sometimes you get a 2-for-1, but it still gets rid of a 3 toughness creature with 3 mana. So it's gonna be, is it gonna be like a 4? Yeah, 3 damage doesn't kill everything. I guess it's gonna be like a 3.5 out of 5. Yeah. Okay, the red dragon it is a 6 mana 4/4, so it's already better when it doesn't cost 7. And red has some ways to make treasures, I think, too. So it's even easier to get the 6 mana. 4 damage to each opponent as an ETB. Yeah, that's great. This is a 4 out of 5 easily. Rust monster. 3 mana, 2/1 first strike. Sacrifice an artifact. Okay, so if you have a bunch of treasures, for instance, this can threaten to deal a lot of damage. This doesn't have any limitation as to how many times you can activate this per turn. So if you have a bunch of treasures lying up, opponent can only jump block unless they have their own first strikers, and this can deal a lot of damage. Of course, as a 3 mana 2/1 first striker, it's not great. But if you have a bunch of artifacts, mostly treasures, to combine it with, it's gonna be great. So it's basically a 2 out of 5 otherwise, but if you have treasures, it can be 3 out of 5, can even be a 3.5 out of 5. Tiger Tribe Hunter. 5 mana 4/4 trample. Pack Tactics trigger is sacrifice another creature, and this, okay, you can just basically throw away the creature to kill an opponent's creature. Well, that is definitely a very good ability. So this is going to, yeah, this is going to be a 4 out of 5. Because it's not so hard to get the pack tactics happen, because this is already a 4 power creature. If you just attack with 2 more power, that's it. You find some prisoners. Okay, destroy target artifact, which will be useful in this format, but not always. What is the other option? Until the end of your next turn. Okay, so you get to untap. Okay, so if you don't find an artifact to kill, you can always get the card back. The best card in the top 3 cards of the opponent's library. I mean, this can't really backfire that badly. So I'm gonna say it's a... I'm not sure, because I don't know how useful the destroy target artifact will in fact be. Not every deck will be playing equipment, but I'm gonna say it is a 3 out of 5 now, and could easily be slightly better if the artifact destroying is going to be even better than I think it will be. Okay, this one is a model spell that is a pretty nice, because if you don't want to use the first ability, you probably don't mind having some additional creatures. So I really like it. It's gonna easily be a 3 out of 5. And then we get green cards. So you can kill a flyer, well, most flyers at least, and then, well, double target creature's power. So basically this is a +X+X. Well, no, +X+Y. Well, green has some big creatures. If it is a 3/3, it's still a +3/+3. An okay trick. It is a 3 mana card, but because it has the mode to just kill a creature, it's pretty fantastic. And when the opponent doesn't have flyers, it's a completely acceptable trick. So I'm gonna say it is a... There's even the uncommon cycle of dragons, so every color has access to some flyers. Even green has a dragon. Okay, let's say 3.5 out of 5, because I'm assuming you hit flyers often enough. And the trick isn't that bad. 3.5. Druid class. 2 mana. Okay, you gain some life. Level 2 is very irrelevant. You will run out of lands that fast. Yeah. How about level 3? Okay, so you get a creature which actually will increase in size because you will play more lands. It's a static effect that will count the number of your lands all the time. And the best part of this is that it will remain a creature even if this druid class gets dealt with. Okay, so levels 1 and 2 are not great, but level 3 is quite nice. You get a big creature in the end, and you will also get some life for as long as this stays in play. So maybe I should give this something like a. So you first pay 2. That's not free. 2 is some amount of tempo that you lose here, and then you have to pay the level 2 before you get to level 3. Yeah, you have to go in order. You can't jump from level 1 to level 3. So yeah, it's not free tempo wise, but for 5 mana you will get something that is usually at least a 5/5, and it just becomes larger. So I think it's given that the amount of mana it takes, I'm gonna give it only a 3 out of 5. If it was any cheaper, it would be maybe a bit higher. This is the green dragon. It's a 6 mana 4/4 flyer. So I like the 6 mana dragons because 6 mana is easy, 7 mana not. Poison breath. When this enters the battlefield until end of turn. Okay, this is interesting. So basically you can attack with all your guys, and unless your opponent has first strike blockers, they will be at least the trades that they are making. Well, I'm not sure how good the triggered ability is, but it is a 6 mana 4/4. Maybe it's not as good as the white or red one. I'm gonna give this a 4-. 4- out of 5. Hunter's Mark. Yeah, this is very good. If it targets a blue creature or planeswalker, I suppose it is going to be cheaper. But even if it's not cheaper, for 4 mana, you can kill most other creatures. Well, of course, not the biggest ones, but if you play green, as you do if you play Hunter's Mark, you will be able to kill fairly big creatures. And this, of course, if you target blue ones, it's gonna be so cheap. I'm gonna give this a 3.5 out of 5. And the Outlander, to what? This is a 2 mana 2/3. When I saw that it's a reach and that 2/3, even without the pack tactics, I assumed it's gonna be a 3 mana card, but it's a 2 mana card. Okay. Venture in the dungeon. Okay, this is great. I'm gonna give this a 4- out of 5. Such an efficient 2-drop. 4- could be a 4. Let's say 4- out of 5. Loathsome Troll. 5 mana 6/2. Okay. But you can make this comeback. Still, it is a 5 mana 6/2, but you have a 55% chance to have it return to your hand, or maybe even on the battlefield. But so it is card advantage half the time, roughly. Okay, I will still give it a 3 out of 5 because it's quite clumsy, and takes a lot of mana to use, and its 2 toughness is just so low for a 5-drop. Okay, this thing, 3 mana 4/5, won't untap. Well, this is a life gain payoff. So what you can do, you can always play this and leave it as a blocker, and then you can attack with it when you know you are about to gain life. I mean, with in a deck that doesn't have life gain, it's not good. It's gonna be like only a blocker 1.5 out of 5. But if you have some ways to gain life, if you can attack once or twice with this, that's gonna be 4 or 8 damage. Or opponent has to jump block. It's gonna be good. So it can go up to, I guess in a very dedicated deck, it can go even up to 4 out of 5. But maybe it's the best case scenario is, well, not the best, but the kind of usual good scenario is 3.5 out of 5. Okay, so this is the thing that gives you a treasure token and continued life gain. Yeah, well, this is the life gain payoff. If you don't care about the life gain payoff, it's not such a good card, but it will be a very good, important when you have those payoffs. So this goes from 2 out of 5 up to 4 out of 5. Okay, purple worm. So first of all, I would pay 7 mana for an 8/7 that has ward 2. But you can cast this for 5 mana and then it will be a 5 mana 8/7. Okay, this is going to be a 4 out of 5. Because this is not a tough condition to meet. Just creatures trade in combat. You attack, some creature dies, and you have a 5 mana 8/7. It's a 4 out of 5. And this is an interesting one because this gives you repeated, well, as long as you have land drops, Venturers, but it is a 4 mana 4/2. So I think this could be, it will remain to be seen how good it is, because basically you can, yeah, it's a 4 mana 4/2. I don't like the size. Okay, let's say it's anything from 2 to 3 out of 5, depending on how big of a liability the 2 toughness is for this 4-drop. But you getting those ventures is very nice. So it can even be actually a 3.5. Okay, from 2 to 3.5, and I will see after a couple of weeks when I have drafted the set. Wild shape. Well, I guess you use the hexproof option quite often to just save a creature of yours. You can kill a 1 toughness flyer with the spider option. Elephant with trample. 3/3 is not that large though. I guess it's still, those 3 options are in the same card. Yeah, it's fine. Let's give it a 3 out of 5. 3 mana. You can have basic land, so this is fixing also. Okay, that's nice options. 1 for the early game, 1 for the late game. I would always play this in a green deck. Well, I mean, of course it has to be a green deck because card is green. So let's give it a, I think it's still just a permanent, yeah, maybe 3 out of 5. If you care about splashing, then it's higher. 4 mana sorcery. Any number of creature cards. Well, usually that's gonna be like a 2 or 3 from 5 cards. Can of course be worse, can be more, but average is probably something around a 2, well, 2 to 3. And then you have the option to just give a pump effect for your team. Yeah, I like it. I like it actually. I'd usually want to play the starter brawl because it's, less variance mode, but when you don't have the creatures, you can try to find some. I will give this a 3.5 actually. Okay, then we have the uncommon. I suppose these are the signpost uncommons. So this one is, well, you get the 4 mana 3/3 venture, and then it has a nice ability if you have completed a dungeon. Well, the 4 mana 3/3 venture is not as good as the white one because it was 3/4, but this has the added benefit to actually be very good if you have completed a dungeon. So I guess it's more relevant than the extra toughness the white card has. So I'm gonna give this a 3.5. Bruenor, 4 mana 5/3. Stat line is nice. So even if you don't have any equipment, you will play this for the stats alone. if you have equipment, this is great. This is 4. If you have a bunch of equipment, it's a 4 out of 5. If you don't have any equipment, it's a 3.5 out of 5. Yeah. 4 mana 3/3. Whenever you roll flying and menace, and maybe draw a card. Wow. So this is obviously not a good card in decks that don't have rolling effects, but if you do have like 5 or more, this is actually very good. So I'm gonna give this thing a 4. If you have like let's say 6 or more die rolling effects, and then if you have like a 3 to 5, maybe it's like a 3 out of 5. If there are no die rolling effects, this is basically you don't want to play a 4 mana 3/3. This one is a 2 mana 0/4, but it draws you cards. Well, I would play this in any blue-green deck for sure, because the potential to just keep drawing cards is great, and it can block creatures. Also, when you are drawing a bunch of cards, it's not irrelevant to have the land ability here the ability to put lands to the battlefield. So I think it's a fairly high pick still. It doesn't do anything combat-wise other than block, but opponent wants to remove it anyway. It's only 2 mana. I will give it a 4- out of 5. This is a 3 mana 2/3, but room abilities of dungeons. Yeah, this is very good. I could see first picking this card because there's so much venturing in the set, and even the less good abilities, when you get to double them, they are fine. If you get to double one of the better abilities, it's great. So I'm gonna give this a 4- out of 5 still, because the stat line is not great. So I will give the minus for that reason. Okay, 2 mana 1/2. Get a treasure token, and okay, so this at least pumps one creature with the treasure it creates itself. And then of course you will have other treasure making. Yeah, this is also very good. Maybe all of these are very good. I'm gonna give it well, it does depend on the amount of treasure generating in your deck, but I think it's easily like a from 3.5 to 4-. And this thing, 2 mana 1/3. Oh, pretty nice set of abilities. So they lose life, meal. Well, I don't care about the meal, but they lose life. You gain 1 life, and you get to scry 1. And if you have the mana for it, you can just make this thing unblockable. Of course, something else too. Because the whenever you attack means that whenever you attack with any number of creatures. So you can make any creature unblockable with only 2 mana. And you can choose this one, which will mean that it will be a total of 2 life loss for the opponent. Yeah, this is great too. I'm gonna give it 4-. 4 mana 1/3. That is a bad stat line. Okay, you can force a block, and then you can draw a card, but it will cost 2 life. I think this is not as good as the other ones, because the stats are very bad for the mana cost, and you don't always get to get the good combat here. And also paying 2 life for each card means you can't draw like indefinitely unless you also have life gain, which green has in this set. But I'm gonna give this only a, I guess, yeah, because the stat is so bad, I'm gonna give it only like a 3, maybe a 3.5. One of those. 2 mana 2/2. Pack tactics. +1/+0. Double these things, power and toughness. Yeah, well, this is as efficient as it gets for 2-drops that are not rares or mythic rares. I'm gonna give this a well, sometimes this will just trade, of course, with opponent's 2-drop. So let's give it like a okay, I don't know. Let's give it a 3.5 or 4 minus. You get to decide. And Trelasara, okay. So this is the Ajanis Bridemaid basically effect here. So of course, if you have life gain, this is great. If you don't have life gain, it's only a 2/2, so it goes from like a 2.5 out of 5 to like 4 minus out of 5 if you have some life gain effects. And that was the multicolored uncommons. Back of Holding, this is a reprint from 10th not 10th edition, but core set 2020. I guess this is in the set because it's a Dungeons and Dragons set, right? Because this is not a particularly good card, it's so expensive. The abilities cost a lot of mana. It can be played, but it's not that great. So I'm gonna give it a 2.5 dungeon map. So this adds only colorless mana, but you get to venture and it costs 3 mana. Yeah, I like it. Especially if you care about the ramp. But even if you don't, you can just start venturing in the later parts in the game. 3 mana. You will at some point be top decking perhaps, and you can venture into dungeon in that case. I like this card actually quite a bit. I will give it a 3.5 out of 5. 50 feet of rope. Okay, so there are some walls, but let's tie up. Well, that is pretty expensive, but I suppose you can use it if you need to, but then there's the venture into dungeon. 4 mana is a lot. It is more than the 3 here. And this is, of course, the usefulness of this card is more. It's easier to justify running this card because it adds mana. And this thing doesn't really do a whole lot unless you, well, I don't expect the target wall can't block ability to be that relevant that often. So it's basically these two, and both of these cost a bunch of mana. I'm not sure I like this card too much. I'm gonna give it a 2.5 out of 5. Iron Golem. 4 mana 5/3 has to attack and block, and because it has vigilance, it always will be able to block if it doesn't die. So what does the opponent need to make this? Well, okay, they can have like a 2 mana 3/1, but even if they do this, you paid more mana, but it's a card-wise, it's an even trade. But if the opponent has like a 6/6, a 3/6 or something like that, they are not. There's not a lot of those cards in the set. I think I would play this in most decks, perhaps. It is decent enough stat line. So let's give it a 3 out of 5. Okay, this has a lot of text, and if you have dragons, it enters untapped. But the idea here is that this is mana fixing. You choose the color you need the most when you play this, and then even if it enters tapped, it's great. I will pick this as highly as Evolving Wilds. So what did I say there? 3.5 perhaps, or at least 3. And here we have, these are the alternate arts. So let's actually, how do I go to rarities? How do I? Does this work? Nah, I don't know how do I get. I guess I should go to. Well, okay, let's just check the rares first. This is gonna be a long video, sorry about that. Okay, dancing sword. The more I read it, the more text. Maybe I'll try to be fast in the rest of the cards. So this is a great equipment. 2 to play, 1 to equip, +2/+1 is already great. You usually don't need to break it into a 2/1 flyer, but sometimes you want to do that because, well, that's the best option. So this is easily a 4-. No, it's actually, no, let's see. Well, it's not, I'm just thinking about if I pick this over premium removal, pack 1, pick 1. Not quite sure if I do. It's very close to that. Let's say it's a 4/5. Flumph. 04. Each draw a card. No thanks. This is not good. Yeah, let's just say it's 1/5. Guardian of Faith. Creatures face out. So yeah, you can protect your creatures. Flash Vigilance, 3 mana, 3/2. Yeah, I mean, sometimes this is just a Flash Vigilance, 3 mana, 3/2. Sometimes you get some value out of the face out ability. Basically, opponent targets one of your creatures with a removal spell. You will play this and your creature will face out, and then on your next turn it will come back. So you basically gain a card there. So this is quite often going to net you a card while being a fairly efficient card for its mana cost. So I will say it's a 4-, at least a 3.5. Loyal Warhound. Well, 2 mana, 3/1 Vigilance, okay. Well, you just get the planes. You often, well, on the draw, of course, it's very easy to get the planes. On the play, if you have enough land drops for several turns, you can just play this. But if you are, let's say, at 3, you keep a starting hand of 3 lands on the play, and then you might want to, depending if you have like some expensive cards in your hand, of course, but you might want to wait before playing this just to get the land. But it's so situation specific that it's hard to make a general rule. The point is this card is very good, and I will say it's a 4-. The free land can matter a lot. 4-/5. Nadar. 3 mana, 3/3. You get the venture and it's a pump effect. If you have completed a dungeon. Okay, this is too good. I mean, the stat line is great and you get the free venture there basically. I mean, it's not great, but the point is that a 3 mana, 3/3 vigilance is already playable, and when you get the free venture here, basically, it's great. I'm gonna say it's 3.5. In a deck that can actually complete a dungeon, it's gonna be like closer to 4. Oswald Fiddlebender. Okay, so basically you can sacrifice like a treasure to get an equipment, and even if you don't have a lot of use for the ability, it's a 2 mana 2/2. Of course, if you have no use for the tinkering here, it's just a curve filler, not a high pick. But if you do have some ways to fetch some stuff, it's gonna be great. So it's gonna be rated from like 2.5 to 4-. Paladin class. Okay, spells. Yeah, that makes the opponent's instance a bit more awkward. And then you can just have an anthem effect. Okay, and the level 3 is pretty crazy. I'm gonna say this card is a 4. It's gonna be a 4/5. How about this? It's this blinking thing. So how many enters the battlefield abilities there are? I don't recall seeing many, but if I don't remember all of that, the rating may change. But I think this is just unplayable in limited. I guess this untaps your creature too, but I think it's in most decks it's not gonna be playable. If you get a lot of enters the battlefield abilities, then of course it's a different thing. But I will say it's a 1/5 as a default. then the blue ones. 1 mana artifact you can. Okay, so basically you need other artifacts. Oh, non-token. So you can't use treasures here. Okay, you really need to have some other artifact cards in your deck. I don't know how often that's gonna happen. So I'm basically thinking that as a default, this is gonna be a 1 out of 5. But if, of course, if you have some number of artifact cards in your deck, it's a pretty decent card in that case. But yeah, it really depends on if you have those or not. Dragon Tail, 3 mana 3/5 flash, but you can't surprise and kill some attacker because this will tap. Of course, it will tap some other thing too. Yeah, but basically you will get in the end a 3 mana 3/5, even though you can't participate in combat with it right away. It's such a decent value. And of course it does lock down opponents, some attacker or blocker. So I'm gonna say it's a 4-. This thing. Oh yeah, look at these abilities. You can even kind of attack with all of, if you assume you have the mana for it, you can attack with a bunch of creatures, and when the opponent makes a profitable block for them, you can just return the creature to your hand, and the other cards you attacked with, draw your card if they didn't get blocked. So this is just 4 out of 5. I mean, basically just this second ability is incredibly strong alone, and then combined with the first, it's so great. Mind Flayer. So what? Okay, opponent better have removal. So this is just a counter magic effect on a stick. Of course, if this dies, so much of that. But yeah, this is a. Is it a 5? Is it time to give a rating of 5 to some card? It is pretty vulnerable, and of course, if it's a 3/3. Okay, let's say it's a 4.5 out of 5. This is unplayable in limited. I mean, it's gonna mill. You can do the math, and some of the lands cards will be lands, but it doesn't mill. Sometimes a bit over 10 cards is possible, but usually limited games are over before either player has like only 15 cards in their deck. So I don't think you ever want to play this card, because this set doesn't have a milling theme really. It has a very few cards that mill the opponent. So this card doesn't do anything unless the opponent is gonna deck. So I will call this 1 out of 5. Now this is a nice instant, 6 mana, but it doesn't matter who controls what. You can just make anything. So that is very strong. I'm gonna give this, because the blowout potential is pretty nice. I will give this a rating of 4. Well, it is expensive, but who cares? It's such a nice effect. Usually you are gonna find a nice pair of things to turn something into something else. So let's give it a. I'm gonna pick this over premium removal. I'm just thinking about that. Maybe I will. It doesn't give you card advantage though, usually, unless you get to ambush something. But 6 mana is a lot. Let's give it a 4 out of 5. And here 7 mana is a lot. So you exile the card, it will go away. But you get to recast your. Okay, this is a 7 mana card, so this requires a deck that goes for the long game. Doesn't go to every deck, but this can be very good in certain decks. It can definitely be like a 4- in certain decks, but in some other decks it's just 1. So you have to decide based on your what cards you have picked already, and when you're deck building, you have to realize if this is going to do anything or not. 2 mana 2/1. Okay, what is this? So you can just attack with this alone, connect for 2, venture into dungeon. And if you have some other attackers and you can, deal more damage, you can still do that. But usually you're just gonna get so many free ventures out of this. It's a great card. It is a, I think it's a 4 out of 5. Black ones. Okay, so this thing is a pretty risky one. Yeah. 6 mana 6/6 that doesn't allow you to draw cards. Well, you will lose life for them eventually. I don't know. I don't actually like this card. 6 mana 6/6 is like you can have a common that is a 6 mana 6/6 or close to that, and then the draw cards. This will, you have to pay a bunch of life. It depends on how many life gain effects you have. If you are playing black green or black white, you can have some life gain. And of course, there's a chance that you can activate the ability to draw 7 and then in response bounce or sacrifice this somehow. And then you just draw the 7 cards actually, because this is no longer their binding contract. But I will keep this. You need some synergy with this one way or the other, either life gain or something like that. So this is by default, it's a 2 out of 5, and then it can get a lot higher than that. 1 mana 1/1 menace, so it can be unblockable. And then it can make treasures. It will cost some life though, but then yeah, the third ability is nice too. Yeah, I like this card a lot. It's gonna be a 3.5. The cube. 4 mana 4/3. Okay, so this is like a banisher effect. Oh, but then you can get rid of if the opponent isn't quick enough to deal with this cube, you can permanently get rid of it. Okay, yeah, this is good. This is very good. I'm gonna give it a 4.5. Maybe 5? No, 4.5. Sphere of Annihilation. Void counters. Okay, so you can, if you have a bigger creatures, you can kind of wipe away the rest. It seems like a sideboard card to me. I don't think this is very reliable thing, and it also can be very expensive. If the opponent has like a 6-drop, what are you going to do here? Yeah, I don't like this card. I don't think it's good in limited. So yeah, I'm going to give it like a 1 out of 5. Now this is a good one. This was one of the first spoilers. So just, forget about the middle ability. It is a 1 to cast, 2 to equip. Yeah, all of this is black, but who cares? +2/+0 and death touch. Such an amazing effect for an equipment. And then there's the 8 mana ability, which is, of course great, but you don't have to ever get to 8 mana to make this card very good. I think this card is a 5 out of 5 because +2/+0 and death touch with such a cheap equip. Opponent is gonna have so miserable time trying to battle through this equipment somehow. It is a 5 out of 5. And here 5 mana 4/4 flyer, that's great. Opponent has to discard a card if they target it. What? Deals combat damage to the player, put that many counters on it, so this becomes an 8/8. Oh, come on. If this connects once, it's unstoppable. Opponent has to have removal for it, and they will always have to discard a card. Okay, it's in 5 out of 5, easily. White, 2 mana 3/2. Okay, which this basically trades with an opponent's creature, and then you get a 2/2 zombie token. Well, that's good value. It's gonna be a 4- out of 5. Wild Mage, 4 mana 3/2. Okay. I'm just trying to figure out how does this thing, because this is an attack trigger. How does Delina survive the first attack? I don't think it's that easy, unless you have like an interaction of your own. Yeah, I don't think this is very good. Yeah. Yeah, it is not very good. So I'm gonna give it. It still has potential to deal a bunch of damage if you get to remove the opponent's creatures or something like that. So let's give it a 3 out of 5, but I don't think it deserves any better. Okay, how about this? But this doesn't do anything if you don't have other goblins. Yeah, it's not very good. I mean, I guess you can have a bunch of goblins, but it's not exactly a tribal set. So it's gonna be basically useless, hard to cast 2/3 for 3 mana without other goblins. So it's gonna be a 1 out of 5. Yeah, but it could be up to like yeah, it could be playable if you have a bunch of other goblins. This I like. This is a very nice way to make an X spell. So you always get, if nothing else, for 4 mana, you get to deal 8 damage to a creature or planeswalker. And then, of course, you want to divide somehow. So you usually want to at least put X equal to 2 so that you can divide the 8 damage in a way that you can kill 2 creatures. And sometimes if you have the 6 mana, opponent has 3 small targets, you can get rid of all of them. So this is I think this is a 5 out of 5. Mostly because it's so good at 5 mana. You get to kill 2 mid-sized creatures with 5 mana. Minion of the Mighty. Yeah. Nope, not in limited. Funny one, but it's a 1 out of 5 in limited. Orb of Dragonkind. Dragon. Yeah, this is, I mean, if you're lucky enough to have that many dragons, maybe yeah, but usually 1 out of 5. Wish. Well, this is any card you have in your sideboard. This really depends on what kind of toolbox you have in your sideboard. So it's 3 mana plus whatever the thing costs. I don't think in limited usually, because the best cards will be in your deck. So how could your sideboard have? I guess there could be like a plummet or something, but yeah, I don't think this is a very good card. It's playable maybe, but I think it's 2.5. Xorn. Well, if you have treasure token generating cards, this will be great, because 3 mana 3/2 doesn't really need a lot to make it playable, and this can be very impactful. So I think this is a 3.5 index that have treasure generation. 7/3 trample. Well, it definitely can trample a lot, and well, basically it is dealt damage, so this dies. This will trade with some creature, you will trample some damage over, and then you venture into dungeon. Yeah, it's nice. I think it's gonna be a 4-. Circle of Dreams Druid. Green, green, green. Problem is that mana cost is incredibly restricting. In a 2-color deck, you don't get to play this on turn 3 that often, and on turn, later turn, this might be useless ability unless you have some big mana sinks. So I think, unless you are mono green, this is unplayable. Yeah, in mono green, it's like a 4. Well, at least 4- out of 5. In other colors, it's like a 2-, 1.5. Froghemoth, alright. Trample Haste, 5 mana, 4/4. And this gets bigger. Okay, yeah, this is for... is it better than Premium Removal? I think it is, because it so easily grows. Because with haste you can surprise the opponent. They don't necessarily have any blockers. So yeah, I think it's going to be a 4.5. How about this? So you may put a harmony counter. But it is 4 mana, that is a lot. So basically you usually, but you don't have a lot of, you usually want to have a mana curve that has like some 2-drops, some 3-drops. And the 4 mana activation is so much that I don't think this is too clumsy. Yeah, I think this is too clumsy. I don't like this. But I guess it's playable if you want to, if you have somehow the spare time. So, but you might just draw the cards you're planning to fetch in the meantime. Yeah, I think it's a 1.5. Long rest. Well, you can forget about the 8 or more. That's not gonna happen. But you can return 2 cards with 5 mana, 3 cards with 6 mana. It's kind of like a draw spell with some selection. And it's target cards, it's not permanent cards, which often green cards do. So I guess it's okay. Usually you will have, 3 different mana values there. So 6 mana, get 3 cards back, can be useful. I guess it's but it's still very clumsy. So maybe, I don't know, 3.5, 3, maybe just 3. Okay. Okay, this is sweet. So it's an basically it's a green and X, and it's an gets X counters, and it has trample. So if you put 6 mana here, it's gonna be a 5/5 trampler, and it will, it doesn't die right away. So it's gonna be rounded down though. Okay, 5/5 becomes a 2/2, and then it ceases to exist, but it's still fine. And you can have an X value, whatever you find convenient. I think it's pretty nice. It has flexibility because of the X, so I will give it maybe a 4-. Ranger class. Well, this is simple. 2 mana gives you a 2/2. That's all you need to make it like a, worth the mana. Oh, and then you only pay 2 more to get this kind of an attack trigger. And the level 3. Okay, yeah, this is a 4.5. Is it a 5? Not quite. It's so slow anyway, but it is a 4.5. Okay, well, this is nice. 3 mana, 3/3. Slightly hard mana cost. Still doable. Reach Ward 1. Okay, nice. And whenever you cast a creature spell, or a planeswalker, you get free ventures. You can't chain multiple ones per turn, but who cares? It's free ventures, and even you have the wolf generating ability here. Yeah, this is a 4.5. Werewolf pack leader. Okay, so yeah, this is 2 mana 3/3. It is a double caster though, so you have to have ideally at least 10 green sources, maybe even 11 to make it likely to have mana up for it on turn 2, but it's still good enough that it's fine to play on later turn 2. I think this is, yeah, this 4 mana ability is quite nice. You get to draw cards, at least one. So it's going to be a 4-, I think. And here are the gold rares. Flying, lifelink, and haste. 4/3. Yeah, let me just say it's a 5 out of 5. It's impossible to raise if the opponent can't trade or kill it in combat. They have just lost the game. Yeah, it's a 5 out of 5. Bard class. Yeah, legendary creatures, these legendary creatures, those spells that. Yeah, I think the set has a bunch of legendary creatures and spells. Well, I don't know if they are spells, but at least creatures. Well, they are planeswalkers, but they are mythic rares. Anyway, point is, this is not very good in limited. It's 1 out of 5 unless your deck really has these legendary creatures. Well, this is pretty bumpy rare. 3/3 double striker is already pretty good, but yeah, this comes with a 4/1. Trist's cat friend. Sadly, he's gonna die very easily with the 1 toughness, but that's what the Drist here wants to happen, because this just becomes bigger, and then it's when Gwen Huar dies, Drist becomes a 4/4 double striker. Yeah, this is just the stats this card can have. It's a 5 out of 5. Fighter class. Yep, the first ability is, of course, all you need. You get an equipment, so assuming your deck has some equipment, you get the card value back right away. And of course, the fact that this makes equip abilities so cheap to activate, it makes, well, all your equipment pretty good. And if you have the mana to go to level 3 here, this is obviously a very good ability. So I'm gonna give this card. Of course, this requires a few equipment, at least 2, ideally 3, and then this will be a, let's say, probably like a 4-. If there are no equipments, of course, this is unplayable, because the level 3 works without equipment, but it's so expensive to get there. I don't think it's worth it. Monk class. Okay, easier to double spell. Bounce. Okay, and then you can get the card at when it's also pretty cheap to level up here. Yep, I like it. I will give it a 4, I think. It's fairly easy to get the free cards, right? It is 7 mana still. Yeah, okay, maybe let's give it a 4-. Now this is a 5, right? Because even if X is 0, you have a 4 mana 5/3 flying trample, which is maybe not quite 5, but close to it. But then when you put some X, and you can in limited usually get to, for example, 6 mana, and with these colors you have access to treasure generation, so you can have big access. So you can kill other creatures if you want to, and then you can just do the other part too if you want to. So this is a 5 out of 5. The base stats are so good, and the X effect can be so impactful. Yeah, the rogue class here is okay. The menace for each creature is okay, but I guess the ultimate payoff is that level 3, which allows you to actually utilize the level 1 somehow. it is slow, but I guess it's not that great, but it should be. I will at least want to try this card. I think it is playable, but maybe not. It is a bit clumsy. But getting many for each creature, that is no joke. Of course, opponent can also always kill these class cards. They are enchantments. They are not emblems or anything. So they can kill this mid-combat and then my creatures lose menace and they can make great blocks. But I think I'll give this a 3.5. Okay, skeletons. Well, you are guaranteed to get 1/1 skeletons each turn. It is a 5 mana card though. But of course, yeah, they just grow out of hand. First you have a 1/1, then you have 2/2/1s, then you have 3/3/1s, and so on. You might get even 2 tokens. So I would think this is not quite crazy bomb rare, but it seems like a card that will just win you the game alone if you can just hold off the opponent's attacks and wait for this thing to win. So I'm gonna give it a 4.5. Okay, first level is draw 2, discard 2, so you basically you lose a card, but then you can make your creatures add mana only for some limited uses though, and then to each opponent. I don't think the payoff is that great. I mean, in Constructed you can of course build a deck around this, but in Limited you won't have that many instant or sorcery spells. Yeah, I don't think it's that great. I'm gonna say it's a 2 out of 5, maybe just 1.5. Yeah, okay, Death Touch and First Strike when it attacks, basically. With this trigger here. Yeah, this is, I guess opponent can double block it because it has naturally only 1 power, so then they get to kill this. But no, yeah, it's not a 5, but I'm gonna give it a 4.5. Wolo. Okay, well, you have to be a bit wary of your creature types. But this is not a tribal set. There are a lot of different creature types. So, and you don't have to, copy more than 1 spell, and it's already great value. So, it doesn't share a creature type with a creature you control or a creature in your graveyard creature card. Yeah, 1 copy should be easy to achieve, and then you already get nice value. I think this is easily. If this doesn't get removed, this will get out of hand. I'm not exactly sure about the creature types, how many duplicates there are. So this can be a 5, but it's at least a 4.5. Eye of Vecna. I don't like this. The good part about it is that you get, by paying 2 life, well, you're losing 2 life, you get the card back right away. But this ability here has the problem that it costs 2 mana and 2 life. How many cards are you going to draw? If you draw like 3 additional cards during the game, that's 6 additional life you lose. I guess in the green-white life gain deck, this is good, but not universally playable. So I'm gonna say it's like a 2 out of 5, but can be in life gain decks, it can be like a up to 4. Hand of Vecna. Number of cards in your hand. So you can equip it by paying life or paying mana. So this is only going to apply on your turn. You don't have a big blocker, but you have a big attacker. You usually have like 3 cards in your hand. 3 to play, maybe even no mana to equip. I think it's gonna be, of course this requires an aggressive deck. It's not good in a defensive deck, but in an aggressive deck, this is easily a 4- at least. In other, slower decks, this can be unplayable. Treasure chest. Yeah, this is the, I guess, is this the only card that has like a negative effect for the die roll? Critical failure here. Anyway, don't play this in limited. It is, unless you have a lot of uses for the treasure tokens, because basically what you usually get is either the treasure tokens or the cards. And the cards are always nice, but it's still pretty expensive. You have to pay 3 plus 4 to get 3 cards. That's pretty expensive. But anyway, if you roll to get the treasure tokens, you better have some use for them. You pay 7 mana total to get 5 treasure tokens. Doesn't sound good to me. And yeah, that's pretty much it. I think this is unplayable. I will give it an rating of 1 out of 5 unless your deck really can use the treasure tokens very, very well. Okay, then we have the rare lands. These are all, of course, fantastic. They, even if they always enter tapped, they would be good, but these can enter early in the game. They can enter even untapped. So these are, pretty good effects. I think all of these are very high picks. What is the actual rating? I guess 4- for each of them. This is a 5 mana, 3/4 flyer, of course, basically 6 mana because if you tap this land to make the mana, the dragon won't be flying, attacking or blocking. So that's 4-. Here we have yeah, 4-. What's this? This one is entering tapped and adding only colorless mana. Legendary creature. I don't think this is usually going to be a playable card. It also taxes your mana by introducing a land in your deck that doesn't help your colors. I think this is most often going to be unplayable because do you want to be tapping your legendary creatures or using them for something? Yeah, I think it's mostly an unplayable card. I guess if you have legendary creatures and you don't have tough mana requirements, let's say you have a monocolor deck, you could play this, but mostly it's like a 1.5. And this becomes, yeah, it's expensive. It requires total of 7 lands to get to use this, but it's gonna be a 7/7 in that case. So 4-, and this is gonna become a 3/3 menace. It's fine enough. It's gonna be a 4-. Hydra. Yeah, it's gonna be a 4-. Treasure Vault. Don't know why would you do that. Sacrificing this with XX is gonna be, at 6 other lands, so total of 7 lands. You can use all that mana and create 3 treasure tokens. I think this is, and the fact it's an artifact land is not going to matter a lot. It's gonna matter a bit for some cards in the set, but not a lot. I think it's another land that adds only colorless, so unless your deck really can take the hit in the color producing ability, it shouldn't play this card. I think it's 1.5. Okay, and that is it. And now the last ones are the mythic rares. This is a long video, sorry about that. Okay, Book of Exalted Deeds. This, well, it's a triple white. That's tough. And then you basically have to gain a bunch of life. There are ways to gain, but this requires a very heavy white commitment. So I don't think it's very, it's good if you have mean, are you gonna first pick this and are you gonna try to draft around it? I don't think so. Of course, it's an insanely good card because you can make those angel tokens repeatedly. But no, I'm gonna say it's mostly gonna be unplayable. 1 out of 5, unless you have the one specific deck that can actually trigger this and cast the triple white card. So this thing is pretty good. Planeswalker with only plus abilities, and if it gets to 7, it's pretty good flyer. And the plus abilities aren't bad. Yeah, I think this is, I'm not insane, but and it's not gonna be easy to make to 7 loyalty. So, and you would have to have those Monk of the Open Hands, which are, I think, were they commons or uncommons? I don't remember anymore. I think they were uncommons. Was it in here? Yeah, it's an uncommon. So I'm gonna still give it a 4.5 because with the first ability you can defend it quite nicely, and if you have other creatures to block with, you can just try to move your way up to 7 loyalty. It's a 4.5, and this is 4 mana 4/3 flying vigilance, blah blah blah. Yeah, well, it's a 5 out of 5. It's good statted creature, which is not enough to give a good rating, but the death trigger gives you pretty nice card, so it's gonna be a 5 out of 5. Well, this is, I guess, hard to do, but yeah, blue. Yeah, 4 blue mana. Instant and sorcery spell you have cast this turn. If you find, I guess it's castable in a 2-color deck later in the game. The point is that you only need to cast this once, and then you can start copying. I don't know. Let's just give it. It's so hard to cast it. It's not that crazy of a bomb. I think I'm gonna give it like a 3.5 or a 4 minus. Because you can cast it in a 3-color deck late in the game. Let's say you have 6 mana, you play blue-red. You cast a 3 mana instant of whatever color. And if 3 of your 6 lands are produced blue, you can cast this after that. Because this attack trigger is of course very good. So I'm gonna give it a, let's give it a 4 minus. And then there's a legendary dragon for blue. Yeah. Well, 5 mana, 5/5 flyer. Draws a card when it connects, and even when it's untapped, it's harder to remove. So it's a 5 out of 5, like the stats indicate. Another planeswalker, Mordenkainen. Draw 2 cards, then lose 1 card. Dark Illusion. Okay, just makes a creature, and then there's a crazy, emblem you don't, or the ultimate you don't even want to do because you might get decked. So, but the first 2 abilities are both very good. So it's gonna be it's a 6 mana planeswalker, but it's still very good. It's gonna be a 5 out of 5. And then the Archlich, 3 mana 5/5. There's something here that makes it, not a 3 mana play on turn 3 at least, so that it would stick. But let's read it. Okay, so this cares about completing Tomb of Annihilation, But you don't have to go there. You can just get 3 mana ventures if that's what you choose to do. I guess you want to go to the Tomb of Annihilation with this card. But the attack trigger is nice. So I would say that it is for, I don't know, it's quite clumsy to use in the end. But you can repeatedly, yeah, but I mean, just paying 3 mana all the time to venture is not gonna win you the game. It's too slow. Tempo loss is huge. So let's give it a 4-. Now, of course, you can have other venture cards that help complete the Tomb of Annihilation. That is gonna make things a lot better. So it will be better than a 4- if you have other venture cards. Okay, this thing. Of your end step. This seems like a, yeah, you don't do this thing in limited, right? Yeah, it's just a 1 out of 5. And here, let me guess, 5. 4 mana flash flying 5/2, but it can't surprise block because it enters tapped. But you can recast it pretty easily, actually. So yeah, it's a 5 out of 5. And Planeswalker gets loyalty when your creatures die. Draw a card. Create 2 spiders. Oh, I get it. You block with these things, you get loyalty back. Although you will still lose loyalty because you only get 2 black back when you paid 3, but you can have other creatures die too. And yeah, I guess, yeah, it's gonna, I mean, you get to draw cards, make those spider tokens. It's gonna be a 5 out of 5. This is still a good combination of loyalty abilities for a 5 mana Planeswalker. 5 out of 5. Flame Skull. 3 mana, 3/1 flyer, can't block. This is this one. So you can recast it forever, or you can just choose to play the other card instead. Well, I don't think it's a bomb rare. It can't block. If you are not the aggressor, the opponent doesn't care about it. So it's still very good, of course. So I'm gonna give it a 4. Maybe it should be. It's so bad against aggressive decks. If you are not the aggressor, you are not gonna have that much benefit out of the card and its abilities. So because of that, it's only a 4 out of 5. And here 6 mana 6/6 flying haste. Okay, fire breathing, and then an ability that's not gonna happen in limited, but who cares? This is a 5 out of 5. No matter what. Okay, more Planeswalkers. So the plus ability is not that amazing. For free, without loyalty, it makes a good blocker. Yeah. You can just spam these devil creatures. These are pretty annoying for the opponent. Yeah, it's a 5 out of 5. It's a 4 mana Planeswalker too. That comes early. You can spam these tokens, and if you have some other blockers too, this won't die to the opponent's attacks, and then the opponent just is gonna, succumb to these the devils in the end. Yeah, 5 out of 5. Elwick. Yeah, this is pretty nice. Plus to venture, and then well, you can get creatures, but I think what I want to do with this thing is just to venture and venture. And well, of course, if you get to the -7, I mean, you only need to complete one dungeon because the +2/+2 is enough. Yeah, I mean, this is great. Also, 4 mana planeswalker, it goes straight to 5 loyalty. It's a 5 out of 5. And 7 mana dragon. Okay, that's not so great. I mean, it's a 7/7 flyer. It is good, but the ability here is nowhere as good as for the others, because you don't really need treasure tokens after you have cast a 7 mana card. But given that also green had some treasure generation, of course, mana ramp, like green usually has, this is going to be a good card, but I don't think it's quite 5. I will say it's a 4.5. And here we have a 9 mana card. It's too much for limited, even with all the treasures that you can have. I mean, you would have to have a lot of treasure generation to consider playing this one. 9 mana is just most of the time going to sit in your hand. You won't be able to cast it. Of course, it's insane if you get to, but that's probably not gonna happen. I would say that most decks, it is a 1 out of 5. Minsk. So that is a pretty tough mana cost. But if you have treasure generation, you can make it happen. It's a 3/3 with a hamster. And then, yeah, this is of course a very good ability. You can just make any of your creatures very big and give the opponent bad, tough decisions. So it is a good card if you can cast it, which is not obvious because there's not that much mana fixing in this set. Well, there are the treasures. So let's say because of the, I mean, how high should you pick this? I don't know. It's tough. It is like a 4, easily a 4 plus 4.5 if you can cast it, but you don't pick this card unless you can cast it, right? So you can't pick it very high unless it's late in the draft and you have like red green with a bunch of treasure token generation. Then yeah, so it's hard to rate. Something like from 3.5 to 4.5. Tiamat. Okay. Well, you have to have a pretty darn lot of treasure generation. And then you would have to also have some other dragons because, yeah, you could have a 7/7 flyer, which is nice, but it's definitely not amazing. You can only play this if you have an amazing amount of treasure generation. So I think, well, it goes from like 1 out of 5 to 4 out of 5, depending on that. Okay, and that was, no, there was another Tiamat. There's the Xanathar. What's this? 6 mana, 5/6. Okay, well, that's a bum. It is a 5 out of 5. Yep. The deck of many things. So you pay 5 mana, then you pay 2 and tap. I don't know. 20 isn't gonna happen. Draw 2 cards is very nice. Return a card at random. Yeah, it's a very slow and clumsy card, but I guess you get some nice value out of it. Yeah, I mean, I guess it is playable, but it's very slow and clumsy. I will give it a 3.5. And that was it, I suppose. That was all, hopefully, because now this video is very long. Thank you for watching. I will be seeing you in the Forgotten Realms drafts. This was a lot longer than I thought it would be, but well, maybe some of you got to the end. Anyway, I will end this now, this recording. So thank you for watching and bye bye.